It will help our teachers love what they do even more.
It will help our students love learning even more.
And it will help me
And me.
And me graduate on time, ready and set for college, career, and life. What is the APS 5? The APS 5 is our term for a specific group of methods we're using to improve results for all students.
So, how did we come up with these 5 things?
We asked ourselves, when it comes to education, what is getting in our way that we can do something about?
What is a roadblock to progress that we can define and eliminate?
Inequity was the answer.
By the way, equity is the quality of being just and fair regardless of economic, social, cultural, and human differences among and between persons.
If you hear us say equity, that's what we're talking about.
Knowing that we need to give inequity the boot, we asked ourselves some more questions.
What works really well to help students do their best? And how can we make sure we're using the stuff that works really well everywhere so we can get better faster?
The APS 5 is our list of answers to these important questions.
Atlanta, just like school systems all across the country, has pockets of greatness and examples of excellence everywhere. And now, we are focusing on 5 measurable methods we already know work great.
When everyone in every school has the same understanding of what to do and how to do it, and has the tools and support to get to work doing what they do best,
we know that's a winning formula.
This will help us do away with uneven results across schools and across groups.
It will help our teachers love what they do even more.
It will help our students love learning even more.
And it will help me
And me.
And me graduate on time, ready and set for college, career, and life.
walking in and out. We have 30 Harvard fellows. They're not all coming at once, and we're just going to have groups come in just to listen to the first couple of ACES, and so it's just a learning experience for them. Dr. Smith was a former Harvard fellow, and so they're here, and they actually might be in some of your schools. I don't know, but they are going to some schools also. But I just wanted you to know, I think Dr. Smith will also talk about them being here. And so we're going to start here in a few minutes. you've seen before, just grounds us in why ACES. And the next slide really we want to focus on this connection to the student outcome focused governance that happens every month with the superintendent and the school board. And so many times she speaks about ACES and what she has heard in these conversations. The process has not changed. Just highlight the survey. Just a reminder that survey, we want the honest feedback. It doesn't get sent with your email. I think we've had 29 elementary conversations of ACES, and 28 of 29 right now. We're 28 of 29 on the survey feedback. Not very many changes, just a couple reminders. The first one's probably the biggest change, is that you will not begin that presentation with that first slide with a lot of data on it. It just talks about the signature programming. So you'll obviously introduce yourself and then speak about the glow and grow, and then we'll get right into the Q&A. The slide deck, as far as historical data, is from the fall to the winter, so not really any historical data from last year except for in the appendix. And this is just for high schools, but just kind of an FYI. The high schools have just some more data with grad rate, and so we just wanted to make it a little bit longer, and we actually split the day into 2 days. Same expectations and norms. Love to have 3 volunteers. Just what speaks to you about the expectations or the norms today? Thank you. That was the first one for all 4. Wow.
Participants actively problem solve, seek insight, and offer innovative strategies.
Thank you, Tiffany. One more.
Just take an inquiry stance. Be ready to learn from others.
Thank you. 2 slides. First slide, we know that the ACES slides actually are grounded in the APS 5, which includes curriculum and instruction. So this chart on the slide shows how schools performed on the MAP assessment from ACES 1.0 to 2.5. We see the biggest shift in proficiency bands from spring 2022 to fall 2022, both in math and reading. So we expect to continue to see growth in the percentage of students who are proficient or above as we work towards spring MAP administration. This is qualitative data that we'd like to share, and it's just the themes from the Q&A and themes from the needs. And so it's a little bit small, so if you see the first, strategies for improved attendance, HMH implementation, foundations implementation, support of our students with disabilities, and family engagement. The top needs, CLL support, hiring and staffing, teacher coaching, continue providing the same support, and then budget. So let's see, with this iteration, we've had some themes over these first 3 elementary. This is the last elementary ACES session, so let's see what these themes will be after today. And so again, reminder, 3 minutes per slide for questions and conversation. Dr. Smith will be facilitating. 2 minutes at the end to address needs, and then 1 minute for transition. And Derek Hardy, like always, will be facilitating the principals as far as announcing them. And Dr. Smith, I don't know if you wanted to talk really quickly as the Harvard Fellows are in the room just about why they are here in this learning experience.
Well, good morning again, everyone. So, and welcome to 10 of our Harvard Doctoral Fellows. For everybody in the room, they are members of the EDLD program. Let's give them a round of applause and a welcome. So, a little background on their work. They're in year 1 of their program, and they have joined us graciously in Atlanta Public Schools to help us noodle on some of the biggest challenges we have, some of those biggest rocks, right, our problems of practice. So they'll be have a chance to see this work, hear from some of you this morning, and then they'll be out in our schools engaging with our scholars and with our leaders to gather information to go back and help us move the work. But this morning, for our principals who know this work as ACES, this was actually a problem of practice that I was noodling on when I was in their program around Edmondson's work around how to be able to move into that learning zone with leaders. So ACES is a product of the work that it's built on work historically, but this is an iteration and where it comes from. And for those, and for principals, we were joking about this yesterday. We've had ACES sessions all week. So sometimes this can feel a little bit like a hot seat, but we call it ACES because it's that balance of accountability and support. And something we're really trying to do is manage the temperature. So this feels, because it's designed to be supportive. And I always joke that if you want to see myself, Dr. Herring, Ms. Brown, the panelists on the hot seat, check out the board meeting on February 6th, because that is a cascade, because this is a product of student outcomes focused governance. And so every month we speak to the board about how we are moving towards our goals. And so we stand up in front of our board and speak about these goals and the progress we're making and the support that we need. So this is a piece of that work. And then, of course, it translates and cascades down into the schools. So anyways, we just wanted to say thank you to the team for your thought partnership and support. And with that, you want to say anything? Yeah, I'm like, Doctor. I want to give the floor to our superintendent if she just wants to share a couple words before we get started. So, Dr. Herring, please. Good morning.
Get us started. So it will, a couple of words literally means two words. So a couple of sentences. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome, Harvard. We are so happy to have you here. I keep saying that this being another iteration of being able to do this work collectively, and now here in APS is a win. Dr. Smith already set the foundation for what this means for Atlanta Public Schools and for our principals, in addition to the ACES work, and knowing that in bringing that in here with this administration, it was a win. To our principals, this is number, which one? This is number 4. This is ACES number 4. I just want to continue to remind you to own it. It is yours. It is not punitive. It is for us to better support you. Lots of celebrations and glows as well as grows in this process. Please stay in that same space that you're always in. The audience that's with us is here to champion you on, not to challenge you, or at least not in that way. We're totally observant, but this is your time. So let's get started.
Thank you, Dr. Herring. We welcome the Jackson and Mays cluster. Happy Friday, everyone. Just 2 gentle reminders to our leaders. Please honor the integrity of our FERPA protected scholars, those subgroups with fewer than 10 students. Please limit your discussions about those. And health information. We want to honor the Health Information Protection Act for our employees that may be exercising FMLA decisions at your buildings. Without further ado, please welcome Dr. Cutina Pruitt from Peyton Forest.
Good morning, everyone. All right, so we're starting off with signature programming with International Baccalaureate. So to highlight some of the glows as it relates to our IB program, professional learning. Professional learning, well, let me step back. I have 17 new teachers at Peyton Forest. So PL is essential to understanding this signature programming. So I'm proud to say that each month we engage our staff with 90 minutes of professional learning. And then I've also established an IB core team. I want to build capacity within the school setting. So we have a set teacher in every grade level that meets once a month with the IB coordinator, and they're tasked with creating the units of study. In addition to that, when I say building the capacity, being that spokesperson for their grade level. In addition to that, we've conducted IB walks, West Manor, and we have some others planned for this semester. We trained 6 teachers first semester, and we have another 11 being trained next week. So we will have 100% of our staff trained in IB, which is pretty good because, yeah, with 17 new teachers. So I'm proud of that. And for our GLOWs, now we have all this training, the application piece. So we now need to apply what we have learned, as evident from our walkthroughs. My IB coordinator is tasked with completing 8 walkthroughs a week. And so data from her walkthrough when she returns to leadership committee, team should I say, reveals that our teachers aren't talking the language. So we conduct the PL, we have walkthroughs, now we build on our next level of professional development so we can apply what we've learned in training in our classrooms. And we have 2 vacancies. Keep going. Any questions? Yes.
So, you go, David White. The floor is yours.
17 of how many staff are new? How big is your teaching team?
David, you want me to add out in public, right? Thank you, David. It's half, like half. Yes. Yeah, it is. But we accomplished it, so that's a GLOW. So thank you. Yes. We're good?
Great. All right, let's roll into our whole child. Okay.
All right, attendance. So last year, attendance was 89%. So we're making some strides. We're not where we want to be or desire to be according to our SIP. Fall, we have 90.9. But can you see our chronically absent students has decreased in the spring? So we are trying to address our attendance by our care team, which meets every week like everyone else. We have a tracker, we inform our parents, we send home letters, we have incentives. But one thing, we still have students, once we have decreased the list, we have someone else pop up. So it's just a revolving cycle. But nevertheless, what we found is to have that intimate setting with some of our parents, just sitting down with them one-on-one, informing them of the importance of coming to school, showing them the data meaning your attendance, along with your HMH, MAP data, formative assessments, and that sometimes have parents say, okay, now wait a minute, I do need to try to get my child to school more.
Yep.
But our team is doing a great job in trying to decrease those chronically absent students and increase our attendance rate overall.
Dr. Pruitt, let me jump in there because that's something just to name. So we've been in these sessions all week, right? This is the last elementary group. So systemically, right, we've seen that a little bit of a dip. We all know that, in the city and nationally, we had that trifecta around December of COVID, RSV, and flu, and we've seen that as one example of a little bit of that dip. One curiosity I have, and if you don't have it offhand or just generally to like David's point as well, so the 63.8, understanding kind of where you were as a school at the same point in time last year. How is the attendance? So we're at 63.8 at this moment in time now. How does that compare around about relative to the same time last year? And thinking how that just compares to the strategies, things that you have changed year over year in terms of how you address the attendance.
Well, it has decreased from spring of 2022. As a result of our team being more strategic in addressing those concerns. When they come in, they are prepared. They do the pre-work beforehand, ensuring that they're calling parents, that they're keeping up with the tracker. It was a little inconsistent before it was just a little inconsistent. So now it's more structured.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, so I'm looking at your ELA data specifically, and one of the strategies you call out from your SIP on the curriculum and instruction page is formative assessment. So what data are you using to measure progress in ELA, and what specific instructional strategies are you seeing in the classroom teachers use to be able to address this data?
Okay, so when I saw this data, really, a little disappointed. So we use formative assessments with exit tickets in our classroom, common assessments amongst our teachers as well. So in our data meetings, teachers are tasked with bringing that data back to the team, in which they disaggregate and we have a conversation about commonly missed standards. And from there, we develop strategies to implement. And a lot of those strategies come from in the whole group tier 1 structure or in small groups that they can utilize as well. The second part of your question, what was that? Instructional strategies. And so that has become one of our areas of improvement that we aim to improve upon are instructional strategies, because our teachers from our walkthroughs have revealed that they lack instructional strategies during Tier 1 instruction. So we're engaged now with professional development with a book study, total participation techniques, to ensure our teachers have their top strategies that they can utilize as it relates to ELA, along with the support from our Rollins Center, who has engaged our K-3 teachers with instructional strategies as well. So with her walkthrough, she's able to document and to recognize if our teachers are implementing those strategies within that setting.
Good morning, Katina. Thank you so much. Can we talk about your foundational skills data from Map Fluency? Can you speak to us about how the foundations implementation is going, how often you all are observing, and what you see in the classrooms as this translates to this data?
All right, so foundations, we have professional learning again. We have conducted 4 foundations practice clinics after school. So it follows a I do, we do, you do model. So our instructional coach began with just simply modeling foundations for our teachers. And then the second meeting engaged our teachers with a we do type setting. And then our teachers in the third session and fourth, they were able to model for their colleagues. And also we used the Foundations walkthrough rubric in which we recorded or documented the teacher's performance and gave feedback. So we engage in Foundations walkthrough and kick up every week. We have calibrated walkthroughs with the leadership team for Foundations, and also our support through Rollins, Dr. Brundage, engages in supporting our teachers with weekly. Well, it changes. Sometimes there's a phonics, there's phonemic awareness, and then foundation. So she also engages in professional learning with them too. But next Tuesday, she's going to engage our K-3 teachers with additional training for foundations. It's just a continuing cycle when you have so many teachers that the practice and the application of it is lacking. So we also have a tier coaching plan. So our instructional coach has tiered those teachers who still have not grasped the foundational parts of foundations. And so she coaches in her coaching cycle with them as well.
All right, love it. Thank you.
And we also included it on our staff.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. So, Katina, Dr. Pruitt, I'm sorry. So I know that you're going through the process of adopting an ELA curriculum. Can you speak to us a little bit about that discovery and what you're doing to address the need? Because you recognize there's a big need, but when you got there and your 17 new teachers, what are y'all doing now to move forward?
Yes, okay, so we began back in October with surveying the teachers to get the buy-in. And so overwhelmingly, 100% indicated that they would like to adopt a new ELA curriculum. So now I reached out to Dr. Spurley, Jamel Riggins, and Ms. Yarday, and they came out in droves, and we were able to view 3 curriculums. And from there, let me go back. I established a literacy core team. So that literacy core team and myself and my leadership team met for a few days to review some of the curriculums that were presented to us. We were also able to narrow down one that we liked, which was ReadyGen. So we were able to also go to Scott Elementary School to see it in practice with some of their teachers. And from there, we also used the district's evaluative tool, the rubrics, to grade the curriculums. So from there, the feedback from the team, we determined now that we're ready to purchase ReadyGen. So I've reached out to the ladies who are supporting me in the central office, so we're just awaiting a quote. And from there, we will begin professional learning in the spring, probably a few days, and then more this summer. So our teachers will be ready, because we'll not only have ELA, but of course, we'll all have math. Yes.
Great job, HMH. Everything is on point, so keep up the good work there.
Okay.
Just really quickly, can you talk about your students with disabilities and what work you're doing as far as collaboration between general ed teachers and the special ed teachers, and what that looks like in your building?
Yes, co-teaching, as evident from our walkthroughs, was just ineffective. So we began with collaborative planning, ensuring that we addressed in our protocol, strategically suggesting in our protocol how the co-teacher and the gen ed teacher will collaborate and what are both of those individuals doing within that setting. So in addition, we have engaged our teachers with training with Metro RESA. They started a session this month. We have a second part 2 with Metro RESA on co-teaching next week. So our teachers, my SPED teachers, have presented their data and developed strategies to address each of their students, in addition to making sure that it aligns to the students' IEP goals as well. And our paras too. Our paras are also engaged in professional learning to support those gen ed teachers in that setting.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. For sake of time, one of the most important parts of the presentation, tell us what you need.
All right, so I've already talked about ReadyGen and the support I'm receiving from Dr. Spurley, Ms. Riggins, and Ms. Yarday. And they are definitely helping me with the planning phase to roll this out in my school. But I also have 2 important vacancies that I'm looking to fill, that is a media specialist and counselor. So the support I've already received from the district in hopes that I can have these positions covered soon, or at least the beginning of next school year.
Fair enough. Dr. Pruitt, remind us, how long have you been in this seat?
Dr. Heron, what is it, like 6 months?
Exactly. And so I want to commend you. That's number one. I know this is your first.
I thank you. I thank you. Thank you.
And I just wanted to also push in to hear your reflection or thought around organizational culture within Peyton Forest, since you've had a chance to take that in over the last 6 months.
Oh, wow. You know what? When our teachers see this data, it was disturbing for them at first, but you guys, they stepped up. So what, now what? And so I am proud to say that it may not look the way that I desire, but we're making strides in which we have built the capacity of our teachers within pockets. Like, we have a literacy support team, we have a math support team, we have IB support team. We have teachers who are willing now to just do the work that is asked of them. So the culture within the building is extremely positive. And with so many new teachers, I can honestly say that they're willing to put in that time. Yeah. So very positive culture, and that really makes a difference for me and for our students.
Well, it starts with leadership, so thank you.
Thank you.
Great job. Way to kick it off. Great job.
Thank you, Dr. Pruitt. Please welcome Dr. Reggie Lawrence from West Manor Elementary School.
Woo! Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Are we ready? Are we ready? Okay. Okay, jump right in. Good morning, Dr. Lawrence from West Manor Elementary School. First, we're going to talk about our signature programming. We are an IB authorized school. We are another GLOW that we're actually working toward exhibition for our 5th graders in February, and that's where they will present on a topic and take action and really employ their IB goals to let us know what they're doing with their learning. On the 19th, we hosted Peyton Forest for a walkthrough, and that was not just a show them what we do, but I actually went back to Peyton Forest and talked to some of the instructors and the teachers to get feedback from them to say, what can we do better? What did you see? What is it that we can do? Because we're always trying to improve. On the last ACES, we talked about some of our needs with our signature program, and we talked about the teachers really learning about conceptual teaching and being able to do that inquiry-based instruction. So what we've been able to do is we use our permanent sub, and I use some of the people in the building, the media specialists and things of that nature, to hold classes so that we can have all-day trainings with our teachers for that and really get in depth with the title, where they're putting in their units and rewriting our units and doing our reflections. And so we had 3rd, 4th, and 5th this week, and we will have K through 2 next week. So we're using our resources to build our capacity within the building. Okay. And also another one of our goals was the family engagement piece. And since the last ACES, we've had 2 family engagements. Excuse me, I'm a little under the weather. We had 2 family engagement sessions, and on the 10th, we will have another data night, APTT, for our families. Okay, and no staff vacancies. Attendance rates, we do have our attendance team. They work very hard. I'm very proud that we keep that 100%, but we check that weekly. We meet weekly on Fridays. We talk about our students, our chronically not absent students, and our attendance rate. What really happens is the attendance team is basically the care team also. We're a small school. We only have so many on our staff, so people do multiple tasks. But by having the attendance team, members of the attendance team on the care team, once we identify those students, we're able to talk about, well, what is that barrier? What's stopping that student from coming to school? And just as Dr. Pruitt talked about, we get the parent in and we show them, like, these are the amount of days that your students are missing. This is the instruction that they're missing, the instructional time. This is where they are on MAP. So you're really hurting the child. And of course, we put the incentives in place. We celebrate the students, and we do the things to make the students harass the parents to bring them to school. But it is a revolving door with the attendance, and we're constantly getting new students. So this data is fluctuating as we go. But we're very proud of what we're doing with that work. Our suspension rate is very low because of the use of our counselor. We really try and do our second step process and work through our SEL, and when we have issues, we take them through that counselor first. So we follow our behavior plan. Our teachers have their cool down corners. They do their discipline, and then it goes to the counselor before it comes for something for suspension.
So, Reginald, your attendance rate looks wonderful, and of course, I see the ADA attendance rate increase. And so, just talk to a little bit about what are some of the barriers from I know that parents in elementary school are responsible for getting their kids to school. So, what are some of those barriers to the parents getting kids to school? Has your attendance team and your care team that work together, have they identified some of those barriers?
Well, you'll see later when we talk about my greatest need, I really need that residency officer to check those addresses, because what's happening as we get into the care team, we're just going to be honest, what's happening is parents have figured out the loopholes in the system. So I have kids coming from Boulevard all the way over to West Manor because a aunt or a grandmother or whatever will vouch, oh, they live here, they stay here, and they're late every day and they can't get them to the school. But once they've signed that affidavit and they vouch that they stay there, I'm kind of handcuffed at that point. But then when you talk to the student, and it's like, why are you walking down the street every morning? Because I get off the MARTA bus and I'm trying to get here late. The student will actually tell you the truth, but we have no grounds without that residency officer backing us up with that. And we actually ride the bus home sometimes, and we identify kids. Okay, you're getting off the bus, but you're not going to the apartment. You're running to the MARTA stop. You're going to a different place. And I know that's, with the Westlake thing, that's a really charged issue right now. So we just want to keep trying to press them to come on to school. Excuse me.
So kudos to you. That green is moving on the right-hand side. So good job there. Good job. What would you attribute that growth from fall to winter to? What are you seeing in classrooms? What has been your focus for the first semester?
Okay. Thank you for that, because we get to the bottom, it's going to be a little different conversation. Excuse me. I can't. I'm sorry, very underwear. We're being very intentional about our small group instruction and really using the staff that we have. Again, we had a learning walk earlier for the Mays and Jackson clusters where we highlighted what we do in intervention, where we use our paras, we use our media specialists, we use everyone to make sure that we have 2 teachers in the classroom during that time. So we eliminate excuses for that small group instruction. We come through and we check that. And so we see the increases that are going on in math, which was phenomenal. It was a great surprise. And then in ELA, it wasn't as much as we thought, but we were increasing in the proficient area. So we're happy with that. We're going to be a little bit more intentional about it. When we got down to our fluency screeners, the data was not triangulating with what we had. So when we looked down at the bottom, we were confused because our iReady data was saying something different. And then our overall data was saying something different. And it can be, we're drilling down. It can be as simple as we found that one of the teachers wasn't there that day when the kids test. We were pushing in, and some of our students did the abracadabra thing. But we're really intentional about seeing what's going on here at this level. So we're increasing our foundation walks, using the tool, going in, really having the teachers explain to us what is it that you're doing within our PLC, and that when you're teaching and doing the teach back, so we can see where that flaw is. Because we're trying to capture why that data is not triangulating and it's not looking the same all the way around.
Are you planning for foundations during your PLC? Is that one of your?
Yes, we have a dedicated 8 to 8:30 block with that also for foundations, and we took it to 3rd grade, which is part of the reason why we need a little extra training with that, because our 3rd grade teachers are not really used to that, and so they're doing it within PLC and doing a teach back with that.
Reginald, quick question. You're using iReady at West Manor?
Yes, in addition to everything else.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so HMH data is...
Everything's spot on.
Spot on. One of the reasons is we start each leadership team meeting with an HMH check. And so we're able right there to identify and see which students were absent, what teachers did not have them on, and go ahead and rectify that.
All right, so Reginald, let's talk a little bit about your subgroup population. So your Hispanic population, I see from fall to winter in math and reading, some very, very significant gains. So shout out to you for that work. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing specifically at West Manor and what you're seeing?
Okay, so when we talk about this data and we look at our GLOWs, our ESL population in reading and math, we're very intentional about the type of teachers that we pick for them. We look at our students and over the years, what they have reacted best to. And there's a certain type of teacher that they kind of just do more with better. And so you be intentional about the teacher, and then the push-in method that we use with IB is really working. Again, our ESOL teacher plans in PLC with our teachers, our grade level teachers. So we're able to see what it is exactly you're doing to modify that lesson for your ESOL students so that they can engage with the standard. So that is what we attribute that growth to. Our African American population is growing in reading and math. All students, again, are growing in math. Our SWD population, we could use a little bit more growth in math, but again, what we're doing with them is that teacher also pushes into the PLC, okay? So we're able to see what the co-teacher is doing and how that matches with what's going on with the classroom as they're teaching to the standard.
All right, thank you very much.
No, I think we're good, yeah.
All right, I think we've hit enough there. Let's go into our needs.
Okay, and again, I just talked about that residency officer, just checking those students. And I think the trigger for us is the students. It's not the students that are transferring in, because I got 4 students this week. The trigger should be maybe the students that are transferring within APS, because what's happening is you get upset or things are not going your way at that particular school, and you have a cousin or someone on the other side of town. Well, let's just go over there, and we think that it's automatically going to change that student or change our situation. And then that is also why I say the data is a little bit fluctuating, because during the time that we're having those tests, students are transferring in. And my AP is, we don't want to be on the list. She doesn't like red. So when she looks at APS graphs and she sees red or something like that, this student transferred in today, let's grab them, let's test them tomorrow, get them in there with that so that we make sure that we're on point with what we're supposed to do. But when we say needs, kudos, shout out to Curriculum and Instruction, Ms. Yardy, coming in, helping us with our foundations and anything we need. I love it. It just goes back to the first ACES where I said, I just need a consistent schedule. If I knew who was coming when, then I could say this teacher needs help here, or we're all good. I have a small group that we have identified that needs help with this. If you come every Wednesday at this time and get this group, I will have them available for that. And while I'm up here shopping, possibly a mock milestones with the power standards, just to give the students a practice. This is how long you're going to have to sit. These are the standards you're really going to have to know about at the DOK level 2, so that, again, when they see the question in a different way, they'll be able to synthesize that information and use it. Okay. And again, I apologize. I'm going to wipe this mic.
Or wipe the mic. No. Dr. Lawrence, I just wanted to echo something you said. This is a snapshot in time relative to our data capturing, and you spoke to that. So that's just important, just as a general reminder. We're very cognizant of that. But greatly appreciate your shopping. We heard you. And yes, sir. Great job.
Feel better.
Wipe that mic. Wipe that mic.
Thank you, Dr. Lawrence. We welcome Principal Felice Perry from Miles Elementary School.
Felice.
Good morning, everyone. So I am excited about our GLOW. So by February 2023, 90% of our faculty and staff will receive Category 1 required training for authorization. So I'm excited about that. I'm very excited because a lot of these trainings take place on the weekends. They start on Friday, they go all the way through Sunday. So our staff are taking time away from their families, just out of their day, to make sure that they are becoming very well versed with the IB curriculum. So kudos to my staff for that. Also, teachers will continue to need development in integrating academic vocabulary with the language of IB during instruction and lesson planning. Much like Dr. Pruitt, same thing when we're going into the classrooms doing walkthroughs, we don't see or we don't hear the IB language that we're looking for, and just making that direct correlation. So we want to make sure that we're consistently doing that as we partner with other principals that are IB authorized. Again, thank you, Ms. Jones, for allowing us to do that. I would also like to highlight Mr. White, because I have already communicated with him as well and had the opportunity to see his school. So we are in the process of connecting with a particular date for our staff to come over, as well as myself. As far as the vacancies are concerned, I have 3 at this particular time, and I would like to say that 2 of those are promotions. So kudos to my staff for that as well. So one position that I'm trying to fill at this time is ESOL.
Can you speak to how you're using your IB specialists to support the work of integrating that academic vocabulary? How are you using them to support your teachers with improving their practices with IB?
Yes, so when we had our actual IB visit, we were charged with the task of making sure that the IB specialist was in extended planning to make sure that the teachers had a true vision and understood what the expectation was. So I would like to say that my IB specialist is in planning at this particular time. She's also doing walkthroughs and placing them inside Kick-Up. She's actually meeting with the specials teachers as well, so getting input from them. And so we're working together to make sure that everybody understands what's going on with IB, and we have a clear alignment with the instruction during our regular curriculum and the IB curriculum as well.
I am proud to say, Ms. Perry, that I'm glad to hear y'all talking about going on school visits. You know how I talk about that and how that's great PL. So I didn't really have a question, but I just want to lift that, and I think that's very good. Your teachers are learning, you're learning. So seeing the expertise around APS, I think that's a great thing. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. So as we continue to look at our attendance data and our behavior data, I am also proud to say that our number for students not chronically absent has decreased from 72.7 to 66.8. So that is awesome. So I would like to give credit to my care team. I have a phenomenal care team. So they produce data every week. We meet on Mondays. So they're looking at APS graphs. They're focused on particular columns with attendance, and they're selecting at least 10 students every week that we are doing a check and connect with. I have my disproportionality specialist there, my RTI specialist, my counselor, social workers, so kudos to them as well. And as we take a look at the suspension rates, we are looking at our males and our African American males. So some of the things that have just been happening have been taking place with our 5th grade students. So we have a mentoring group with the launch pad, and so they're taking our 5th grade boys under their wing. Our social worker has set up times for mentorships with our boys in the classrooms as well. So I'm very proud of that initiative.
Yep. All right, so looking at your map data, it looks like ELA is consistent from fall to winter, so not a lot of movement there. You did see more movement in math at the beginning level. What is happening? Is something happening different as far as planning goes for ELA and math? What does that time look like at the PLC table?
So as far as with ELA, we really had to dig deep into our planning sessions with ELA. We were familiar with Eureka Math, so our staff had that curriculum down, just the flow of it, but using ReadyGen, foundations, that was an Achilles heel for us. So with that being said, I want to shout out Nikki Stroud as well as Jermel Riggins, because I reached out to them, and Erica Jones. I reached out to them to get them to come to our plannings to make sure that the ReadyGen component was flowing. Also with Ms. Stroud, I asked if we could deploy different supports inside the classroom with that one-on-one teaching model, because the data spoke to a need, especially with our new teachers. Ms. Desiree Walker, I want to highlight her as well because she has done a phenomenal job with foundations training. So she was just in the building yesterday because we wanted to make sure that our staff were very well versed with that. That has been a huge issue for us because they really just did not understand how to deliver foundations instruction. So we've looked at that. We've developed an actual lesson plan for them that takes them step by step of what to do to break down ReadyGen, because I'm not quite sure if you guys understand the ReadyGen curriculum, but it can become very, very frustrating at times because it goes over multiple standards at one time. So I will say that that has contributed to that. But one positive note is our intervention block is 45 minutes is definitely solid. We're actually making sure that we are incorporating standards inside that intervention block when we're using System 44, Read 180, as well as our Read. And I have had students to move from System 44 to Read 180, so I'm very proud of that as well.
Great job. Thank you so much, Delise. Wonderful, wonderful work with that. So just have a quick question about you as the principal and your leadership team. Can you talk about how often you all are going into classrooms and giving feedback specifically on ReadyGen implementation, using the standards, and then, of course, foundations as your team is learning how to implement that program much better? How often is that happening, and what do you, I know you already told me what you saw, so how often are you all providing feedback and observing?
So we are going into the classrooms weekly. So my instructional team, my assistant principal, myself, we go into the classrooms. We're using the Foundation's actual monitoring tool that's a part of our staff as well. So we are getting that data. We are charged with having at least 80% of our staff to be proficient on that actual monitoring tool. So we definitely have to get into the classrooms to see that, to meet that staff goal. So I take the data, we speak with our team. That's why Desiree has been out as well, and that's why Jermel is tired of me calling. So because I want to make sure that we have the support that we need in the building.
I want to go back to math. So what are you going to do this semester to make sure your students are ready for milestones?
So I have 2 teachers in 3rd, 4th, and 5th. at this particular time. We're operating in small groups. We looked at the content weights, we looked at the standards, and we looked at where the students were struggling on the learning continuum with MAP. So we mapped out a calendar and we developed a 10-day cycle. So there to focus on these particular standards in small groups. We have teacher B focusing on the deficit areas, and teacher A focus on the students that are on target for proficiency. So that's what we will be doing. After the 10th day, they take an assessment. In our collaborative planning meetings, we look at the data, we see what we're doing, we plan spiral reviews, and we reteach as needed, and we follow that cycle again.
And also, I'd like you to speak about, I know I speak to them all the time, so I know what they're doing, right? So I want to add the part about the after school and how you're being strategic about after school, breakfast club, and MTSS EIP, I think I took down my notes. Okay.
So as far as our after school program with preferred care, our students have a certain time where they're on the laptop to make sure that they're on our HMH platform. Also, we have started an after-school program. It hasn't begun as of yet, but we're in the process of that. And we have hand-selected students based on the MAP proficiency levels to make sure that they're there. We will be focusing on math and writing during that time. And the reason for that is because we have a heavy lift with reading during the school day. So we did not want math to suffer, and we definitely need a more intentional focus with writing. So we have a writing calendar where we will be breaking down various components of the rubrics, where we would take those components out for the entire week, assess, and then come back and speak. So our teachers will receive a stipend for that, as well as they will have to do planning with myself and the coordinator for our after-school program. My MTSS specialists, as well as the disproportionality specialists, they're in the classrooms pulling small groups. They're using Ames Web effectively to push for reading fluency as well as comprehension. Our EIP teachers are focusing on comprehension as well with our students that are struggling at this particular time.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. So your minutes look good, and I appreciate the call out for your sessions and your segments to make sure they're getting both of those in. But it looks like you're on track, so make sure that you keep up the good work there.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you so much. So, Delise, let's talk about your students with disabilities population. So, can you talk about what you are intentionally doing for your students with disabilities and what you're seeing as you observe special education instruction?
Every Wednesday, my CELT has a meeting with myself when I'm able to attend, or my assistant principal when she's able to attend, to go over the learning targets for our SWD students. We also use the reading strategies books, and we use the IEPs as well. So we look at what the IEP is saying, and we connect that strategy with the IEP. And then we see how it is aligned with the actual standard. We then ask the teachers to model it. Our special ed teachers are charged with having a notebook where they're looking at data as well, and we have to identify what the strategies are. So the special ed students are a part of that 10-day cycle as well. So we consistently meet and discuss. One thing I have a third grade co-teaching group that is absolutely phenomenal. So our next steps would be to videotape that co-teaching model, and when we come back, we create a rubric and we ask, what do we see in this co-teaching model that we need to see in our other co-teaching models? So we will have a clear expectation across all grade levels when we go into the classrooms. We can't tell who's the teacher. Everybody is very well versed with the curriculum, and that's what we want to see moving forward.
Perfect. And I just want to call out, Delise, I see your subgroup population of Hispanic students showed tremendous growth from fall to winter, both in reading and math. So if there's anything you want to highlight around your work with Hispanic students, I'd love to hear it.
I would like to highlight that I do have ESOL trained staff in the building, so I would attribute that to the growth, as well as making Lexia mandatory for our students.
Great,
okay,
thank
let's
you.
move into needs.
Continued support from our district specialists as we are trying to make sure that everybody is very well versed with Ready Gen and foundations. Streamlining meetings with the state and district personnel. So with me being a CIS school at this particular time, and also with the learning walks, if we can just combine all of them so I can actually get in the classrooms to inspect what I am expecting. So that would be very important. And the ESOL vacancy, if we can receive support for that, I want to say that the team has given us different strategies and support, but just allowing us to have a quality individual that has the traits to move our ESOL students as we had before.
And Felice, I see there's a missing bullet, but I know some of the innovative strategies you've been thinking about scheduling. If you just want to, let's throw it out there, name it, because it would be appreciated in the ether here.
Okay, so one of the innovative strategies that I am definitely interested in implementing is year-round school. And the reason for that is, as we look at the data of miles and coming back from the pandemic, it is up and down, up and down. So which speaks to several things. One, being able to have a core group of students that we're tracking and following them to make sure that there's no learning loss throughout the summer and throughout the school year. Also having a time to have embedded training during the day, because our teachers, they're overwhelmed. So when we're calling them back in the afternoons, on the weekends, they need a break. So if we're doing that with year-round school, that would be great, as well as having a way to have a personalized learning approach, as well as focusing on learning tracks like with CTAE. So looking at how that personalized learning can be aligned with Mays High School. So we're looking at what Mays High School has to offer. We have those same things at Miles Elementary School to start, so we can have a true track. So that's something that I'm definitely interested in. I would love to make sure that we can make that happen, and I have already developed a plan, so I would love to get with you all to discuss it further.
Thank you for sharing that. And then I just want to remind our principal group at large that we are free to ask each other questions during this process. I love that you called that out and shared it. It might have triggered thought as well. But as we go through this, for as much as we're asking, you're invited to ask of each other or across the room. That was well shared, and let's see what we can do to make that happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you, Principal Perry. Folks, please welcome Principal Crystal Jones from Beecher Hills Elementary School.
Good morning. Do I advance this or? Okay. So with our signature program, which is International Baccalaureate, we've been authorized since 2011. And on November 22nd, we completed our third evaluation visit. And this time we had 0 matters to be addressed. We identified our next step for the next evaluation visit in 5 years for improvement of inquiry instruction and which is now aligned, as we see, to our personalized learning strategy, our focus strategy for personalized learning. We're in wave 1. And the initial implementation of what we are moving towards is successful. Our grow is that we're going to increase opportunities for student agency and ownership. I did my EPAT mid-year with my IB coordinator yesterday, and everything she had under her opportunities and growth was student agency, student voice, but I was like, really, are the students going to run this place this year? What is happening? So we are really moving towards that, specifically for students who have been identified with the ability to have success with increased independence, who we can trust to actually run the place. They will be. We have 2 vacancies. One is a special ed teacher and one is a special ed autism para. But the para, we sent somebody in this week, so that vacancy is filled. And we have a long-term sub in the special ed teacher position. I'm going to wait till the spring to ensure that I get the most quality candidate. Thank you. Our attendance rate is, dipped by 1%, but the thing that most concerns me is the students not chronically absent. You know, it continues to decrease as students continue to miss days.
Right.
And those students represent, one, our autism classes, which are now over capacity at 14 students in each room, which should be the limit of 13, 8 of which don't live in our cluster. Okay, but I'll get to that later on.
Yeah, that sounds like a need.
So it represents those students who are, you know, have medical issues, or either they have to have therapy at the Marcus Institute for various things that they have to be out for extended periods of time. And it also represents like 1 or 2 families that have 6 kids and none of them come to school. And so our suspension rate is below 1%, and that's attendance and behavior.
Okay, good. Let's move into the data. You answered the question before I asked it, so yep.
So looking at your map data, kudos to you, growth.
Thank you.
Decreasing those beginning. I see in your SIP strategies you have an increased focus on Tier 1 writing. So just speak to your specific focus. What are you trying to see? What are you providing PL around in
So
writing?
in our previous ACES, I spoke to the fact that we dug down into our ELA data to determine that we had close to 30 kids who scored in developing, but had met the Lexile target for their grade levels, which means they were fluent and proficient readers, but they did not get any points in the writing portion of the milestones. So one focus was teacher capacity. 2 was getting a comprehensive resource, because, while my teachers feel comfortable doing guided reading and some of the other components in the reading block, writing was not something they felt comfortable with, building on their own. So we purchased Writing City for Tier 1 writing instruction for everyone K through 5. It became a focus also in the content areas to ensure that our so now when we have any writing training, the specialist teachers don't feel that they're absolved. You're in it, because there is a writing expectation with whatever it is we're doing in specials and enrichment. I go on your bulletin boards at the end of every unit. The students have written in English and in Spanish, what it is, whatever it is they're doing in the units. And we're continuing to strengthen teacher capacity, because even as I looked at the Write Score data and we tried to say, well, we hadn't taught opinion writing yet, so this, so we gave this. But the things that I looked at, like mechanics and staying on topic, like that doesn't matter whether you're doing writing response or opinion, or she didn't write anything, right? Like those things are not acceptable. So we had a school-wide meeting about it. The children are clear, like Ms. Smith taught you that in kindergarten. You shouldn't still be in 3rd grade not putting periods. You know better. We're not doing that. And some graphic organizers and concept maps around organizing the students' thoughts. So those are anchor charts in every room and little anchor charts that were sent home in their folders, so even when they work at home. And then 3rd through 5th grade, our academic parent-teacher team meetings, generally we don't focus on a reading skill, because our students generally have those early reading skills down by 3rd grade. But this time, when we have APTC next week, 3rd through 5th grade is focusing on writing, and we're going to use our Write Score data. So we'll loop parents in to this work as well. Like, it's our instructional focus. It's one of our big 3 things. Thank you, David. And everybody knows it.
I just want to kudos for the Tier 1, just overhaul, the walkthrough, how you just walked through a Tier 1 process at Beecher. I just want to lift that. I have to.
Thank you. And you see parents, teachers, students.
Tier 1
is included. And it is our after-school program focus. We got a grant from SCANA to run a homework club. And so the teacher works with 3rd through 5th grade. Those 30 3rd through 5th grade students were the ones who were invited, and that's what they do twice a week after school.
I think that's it on that side.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad, though, we talked about Tuesday adding the pre and post test for right score.
Yes.
Because MAP doesn't really give an indicator of how
That's
we're
right.
doing. This looks nice, but it's not really showing what we're doing.
That's
on
exactly
writing,
right.
so
That's right. That's
we'll
right.
see.
HMAs look good. Keep up
Even
the good
at
work.
System 40, I thought I was ready to just say.
But you got 15 minutes in 2 days. That's all we ask.
That's not enough. But okay.
But that's all we ask.
I want you to know they're in trouble. So just know that.
Okay, thank you.
Love the sweet accountability, Crystal. So, Crystal, if you could just talk a little bit about, you talked about a lot of your strategies already. Can you just hone in on students with disabilities at Beecher?
Yes, so co-teaching is a major focus, with resource being for students who perform more than 2 grade levels below. So only students who are assigned to resource for reading and or math are students who are more than 2 grade levels below in their performance. Our other students get co-taught and supportive instruction, and so that happens so that students can get access to the grade level standards. And then we provide Breakfast Club, which is in addition to the intervention block for those students who are in special ed and tier 3, about to be evaluated for special ed. They get additional time in the morning on HMH. And we just purchased extra math because we needed something online for math. And so they do that in the morning. They're co-taught instruction throughout the day, and when the co-teacher is not in the room, there's a para for supportive instruction to ensure they have access to grade level standards.
Thank you so much.
All right, quick question on the C&I slide, the family engagement piece. Approximately how many students?
Oh, right there.
Yep. There you go. Approximately how many students at Beecher Hills?
240.
240, okay.
That doesn't include pre-K that we don't get counted for, but I have 22 pre-K students. And we also do APTT.
So on average for the family engagement meetings, so you're seeing half of your parents, guardians, families.
More
at each
on a sunny day, 60%. On a rainy and cold day, only 50%.
And so, and I know that's built over time, right? But like, what's the secrets? I mean, that's a powerful
honestly,
number.
It's the intervention APTT. When the state sent out the invite for schools, they were doing 10 districts in the state at a time, and we were in the first 10 districts. So I volunteered, right?
Okay. Yeah.
It's the methodology in that model. And so my team and I were trained by West Ed, who Maria Paredes actually did my training, who invented APTT. And so then we went back and trained our school, our teachers, they bought into it. Yep. But following the model of direct outreach. And that expectation of direct outreach has spilled over not just into APTT, but anything we do where we want parents to be engaged. Right. We have to be intentional about letting them know we want you here. And so
I just want to call it. Yeah, go ahead, Doc. I just want to call it.
And can we? And for you, that's not new. The direct
this is
outreach.
Year 7 with academic.
So I wanted you to name that too, because then I think that that's a community culture or expectation that direct outreach.
When I say that, they know what I mean.
Yeah, right.
That doesn't mean send a flyer.
Correct. Right. That's correct. And I just want to lift that. I know this is one ACES group, but
it's top down because you will see me in the carpool.
Yes.
In the window.
Yes.
On the bus.
Yes.
Inviting you, telling you it's everybody.
Absolutely matters. Yeah. Absolutely matters. And an exemplar practice.
That's
I just want to live.
Yeah, exactly.
An exemplar practice.
Call it out. Great job.
So I encourage people to do academic parent engagement and find an academic parent engagement initiative. But if it's not APTT, whatever it is, because we also do student-led portfolio conferencing, because academic parent-teacher teams kind of focus on those low-level, early skills, but we do student-led portfolio conferencing as well. And with all of that, direct outreach is the key.
Great. Okay, awesome.
Crystal, how long have you been the principal at Beecher?
I was going to ask that question.
That tells my age kind of. I was 10 when I became a principal. I've been the principal for 14 years.
Wonderful. Gotcha. Great job.
Yeah. Yes.
And all at Beecher.
All at Beecher.
Started as a kindergarten teacher.
Yes. You were my model teacher. You observed me many times.
That's what she was doing. I see.
I was scared. She would come in, her clipboard, scaring me.
I can't imagine.
Crystal, you're not scared of anything.
All right, well, we cannot let you sit down without getting to those needs.
Okay, so I've already mentioned my.
Gosh,
Did you? It was something. Is the font working?
wow.
That was received.
And this is, we have an inclusive culture. I welcome everyone, but I also want to make sure that what I'm providing is quality.
That's fair.
And one of my classrooms has a brand new teacher, and we have had a brand new teacher in that room 5 times in the last 7 years. Because those are hard positions to staff. One was a brand new teacher straight out of college. You know, she couldn't handle it. Then the second teacher, she died. And then the third teacher had 2 heart attacks last year and decided she couldn't. So this teacher is a brand new baby teacher. And both teachers, you know, the other one's experienced and they're helping each other, but there have been several moments where I have had to console them down from tears. And, you know, that shouldn't be. So I just want to put a plug in there that I need a little attention right there. Thank you.
We got it. Thank you.
And then echoing what Dr. Lawrence said, because another part of my attendance is people who do not live in our school zone. And like one lady, she says she lives next door. Ma'am, you don't live next door. You just told me your son plays football for Lithia Springs High. So how do you live next door and that happens? But because it's her aunt or mother or somebody who does live next door, right? So going further with those processes to make sure. And you wouldn't come on my radar. Like I wouldn't have to ask you where you live if you either were not an attendance problem, an academic concern, or a behavior concern. Yeah. And this particular parent is all 3, right? Wow. So there's that. And then I'll say again, a progress monitoring tool for students with disability. We use AIMSweb for our Tier 3 students. And my special ed teachers kind of just pull easy CBMs, pull old AIMSweb papers and things to try to progress monitor. And so a tool for them as well. Thank you. Yes.
2 things. The first is just I wanted to voice how much we will miss you.
Yes. Oh, I'm still here.
The second is,
thank you.
How do you like writing city, and how expensive is it?
So you know, I am a small school with few economically disadvantaged students.
Writing city,
for the mic so that they can hear. Yeah.
So how much is Writing City? And thank you. I will miss you all immensely as well. Writing City, I don't know the exact quote, but I know it can't be that expensive because, like I said, I'm a small school with few economically disadvantaged students, and my EIP numbers continue to decrease, and so my number was 6 figures of red when I opened my budget. And so I know that it can't be that much.
It was.
The teachers like it, the children like it. My only concern was that it wasn't fully pushed into my backpack correctly. And so the students could use it, but the teachers could not sign personalized lessons like it was designed to. Right, that was to no fault to APS, that was Writing City, and they continue to say they're working on it. So my statement to them now as I'm getting quotes to go in my budget is I will not include you in my budget if it's not going to be working. And also if you can't give me some kind of discount for next year. Yeah. So I will follow up with you. But they liked it. The teachers enjoy having something that they could rely on for Tier 1. And then we move from there for students who are able to.
Hey, Crystal, I just want to do a kudos for both you and David White. These are the top 2 highest employee engaged schools in the district, and more engaged than about 90% of all schools that do employee engagement. 88. I gave you a couple. I rounded up. But we'll be reaching out definitely to kind of learn some lessons, but across every question, whether it's you feel comfortable talking to your principal, you feel cared about, you know it's expected, both of y'all, I'll
It took 14
do
years,
every
though,
school.
man. It took 14 years.
And I just want to take some personal privilege here just to thank Ms. Jones for what she does as a principal, as a stellar leader. Not that all the other principals aren't, but she is leaving. And the extra stuff I put on her, whether it's a PL facilitating coming up, Special Ed Friday, whether it's mentoring principals and JMC and other principals, and also leading our collaborative walkthroughs, our learning walks that we started last year. Ms. Jones leads those. She organizes those. So you will be missed. I texted her last night saying I was sad because I had to process it all. But so I just wanted to know that because I believe in giving people their flowers while they're living. And you have been a phenomenal leader. And I know the best is still yet to come. So
Thank you. Thank you. Stop it. I'm still alive. I'm still here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Principal Jones. Folks, please welcome Tiffany Moman, Principal of Cascade Elementary School.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Let's jump right on in. I hate I have to jump right on in with my friend of 40 years leaving me in at APS. I know, it's just so emotional for me. Anyway, we're here for ACES. Let me get started. Why isn't it showing largely? Did I not? Okay. Okay. No. Oh. See, my emotions are all up in the roar. I can't even click the right button. Thank you. Forward, backward. All right, so Cascade Glows for IB. We are having our IB authorization visit right now. I'm so excited. My leadership team, we had our meeting with the consultants yesterday at 9 a.m. and I will have my exit interview today at 4:45 p.m. So I don't think it gets more specific than that to where we are with IB. But our grow, however, is that Cascade is continually working on student use of the IB language when communicating throughout the instructional day. As we have conducted our team instructional walks for IB, as well as APS instructional walks, and we look for components of IB, that was an area of weakness for us. So although our teachers are using the language more, we're encouraging our students to do the same. We do have 3 vacancies at this time, 2 of which are interrelated teachers, one which we earned through leveling, the other which resigned through the 90-day process, and then my math instructor was promoted to master teacher leader, leaving a math vacancy for 5th grade math and science. Our attendance data, our take rate, we took a little bit of a hit with 99.3 going down for our take rate. I do know why. I do know that we have a class of 4th graders that have been without a permanent teacher since September, early September, September the 9th, I think is the date. And so we have had, depended on subs to get the attendance up to the office, so forth and so on. And so that is the reason why it took a hit. However, our average daily rate, we are up a little bit since the fall. And our students chronically absent, we are doing better than last school year. So as we continue to see the months proceed, we know that there will be a climb, but we do expect to end better than we ended last school year.
Absolutely. And so I just want to shout out that the spring 2022, you had an students not chronically absent at 53%, and you went to 71.1 to 62.1. So it's still higher than the 53%. So we definitely want to keep pushing that. Is great work. And of course, our students not chronically absent, we wanted to keep rising, as you said. So great work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And okay.
I just want to ask you real quickly, so can you speak to just really quickly the work of your attendance committee or your care team in their role in helping to increase the number of kids not chronically absent?
My attendance committee and my care team have been working overtime, double time. We meet weekly, but we have daily triggers. So we know that if our percentage of students absent for that particular day exceeds our 10% of students, everybody on the team stops, drop, and calls. And what that means is we don't wait on an automated phone call system to reach out to families. We call families. We ask what's going on, why aren't there scholars here? We even did things that we know we probably shouldn't have done and went to homes, knocked on doors. During the instructional day, I've gone from, I know Dr. G's laughing, she had to stop me because she said, so she reached out to policy. And so I've stopped that practice since then. But I was going out, leaving my job, going to houses. I need you at school, follow me.
I love it.
Yes, so shout out to my attendance team and everyone who helped support that.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, no worries.
All right, so we'll jump right into our data.
Yes, so with my suspension data, we have suspended. It has been an uptick, especially with our males. I was just telling Dr. Goodwine yesterday, I believe it was when I had my leadership conference, my girls actually get into more. My boys are just more aggressive. My girls are mouthy, so they don't act on what they say, but my boys actually do. And so for that reason, we've gone through the progressive discipline model, but it is a time of the year where we've started at level 1, and we're about at the point where suspension is the next step.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate you using those steps for progressive discipline with our students. So great work. We're going to jump to slide number 4, which is the data. So let's dive into our MAP data.
Oh, God, I've been dreading this one. Come on, Dr. Florence, let's go. Oh, no, not this one. It's the next one. Never mind. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say this one's pretty consistent.
I'm ahead of myself because I've been dreading this one slide, and that's that HMA slide. I thought it was that. Okay, here we go.
So I know that you too have had an intentional focus on writing this year.
Yes.
You saw some good growth last year.
Yes.
MAP and milestones, but just speak to your strategy around writing and what you are doing to make sure that that has an impact on your milestones data.
So what I'm doing now is paying close attention to grammar. Too, like Crystal, I looked at the writing, and there were different components on the right score which were simply just grammar, like knowing that sentences start with capital letters, they end with punctuation marks. And because my instructional tier 1 program, Lucy Calkins, does not really zone in on that, my teachers were not zoning in on that. So we had to come together as an entire instructional team to say, let's put grammar specifically in our ELA block. Let's look for it. Let's have spot checks. Let's make sure that it's part of the daily objective where it had been omitted previously. So now we have a grammar focus at Cascade for this semester. And we've also purchased Shirley Grammar to help us along with that process. We're piloting that for grades 3 through 5.
Have you finished your opinion assessment?
Either we're in it or we're just finishing it.
Okay.
Because I know it was delayed a week.
Yes, I just want to know if you had analyzed that
this
yet.
week,
Okay.
ending this week.
Okay, gotcha. All right, next slide, please.
Oh. Let's go.
So just System 44 has been everyone's struggle. So just tell us about what barriers you are seeing.
I'm going to tell you my barrier.
And then what are you doing to address the barriers?
So my barrier is, I have a 4th grade class that I think I mentioned earlier was without a teacher. The 4th grade team they are a team. So 2 teachers teach 2 contents while the other 2 teach the other. So the teacher that left in September was my math and science teacher. Well, I noticed that my math and science data for 4th grade for that cohort specifically in MAP was low because they've been without a regular teacher. So I made some shifts. So instead of it being the 2 classes divided with 15 and 14 each in a class, I combined the classes because it's still lower than the state average for class sizes. Put the 2 together. Well, I had to get my math coach in the game of teaching. So my math coach became the teacher, and she teaches these 29 kids in the morning, right? And they get their math intervention daily, which my schedule allows for them to have a math and a reading intervention daily when they're on those teams. Well, when they go to the ELA in the second half of the day, the teacher who was a novice teacher was saying she couldn't really monitor them like she needed to. Thus, when you look at the roster of the kids that are not earning their minutes, they're from that classroom. So we had to make an adjustment to make sure that we put 2 additional support staff in there with her now, so that all kids are now just on the platform. So she doesn't have to really worry about conducting a small group and monitoring kids. Like she couldn't toggle both as a novice teacher. So we've made some modifications as early as last week, and I'm hoping that that'll be the difference, because that class specifically, when you drill down to the data, might have been getting 7 minutes 3 days a week, which is inadequate. So I know where it is.
Thank you for a plan. Thank you for a plan.
Perfect.
And I just wanted to lift that plan must be working, because Cascade is off of that tier 3 list. At least part of that plan must be doing something, right? Yes. So I had to say that Cascade is off of the tier 3 list. Definitely.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Hard work and intervention did play a tremendous job in us coming off of that state list. So we do it, but just this year having 13 brand new teachers, everybody's learning new. And then we had an enrollment increase of about 50 more kids this school year than previous school years. So we're growing in every sense, but we are still learning because we are so new in many cases.
Thank you, Tiffany, for that call out around intervention and your intentionality with the intervention block. So appreciate that. So let's talk about your students with disabilities work. And so just a little bit of difference between fall and winter, specifically in reading. And then, of course, we're looking at math. What's consistent? Can you talk about that work and what you're doing specifically to support your students with disabilities?
Yes. So my students with disabilities, again, I have 2 vacancies for my interrelated. So without a teacher for a lot of my kids. I have pulled in my CELT, who is also now teaching. And so the work that we're doing with them, we're trying to move to the COTAR. We're in the COTAR model, where the teachers have been a conflict. Some of them are saying that students are so low that they need to be resourced. But my thing is, with them being resourced, you're not always providing the on-grade level instruction. So if you're not providing the on-grade level instruction, of course my scholars are not going to be able to master and or pass or, the test that they're taking. So what we've done is, for our students that are without a teacher, we have taken our other 2 interrelated teachers kind of away a little bit to support those 3rd grade, because this is basically a 3rd grade where my highest number is and where my vacancy lies. And I think it's about 7 3rd graders who are SWD, either resource and co-taught. So my other 2 teachers who supported maybe grades K1 and then the 4-5 are now coming down to provide instruction. I have my gifted teacher supporting those scholars as well, so that she's in the room to make sure differentiation is taking place for all kids. So it's a lot at Cascade right now, it's a lot of people doing things outside of their normal roles or what they started out doing, so that we don't have any gaps for kids, so that this data can turn around for my SWD kids.
Gotcha. So just really quickly, for next slide, number 7, I see in curriculum and instruction, you talk about tier 1 intervention block for academics, and that you're monitoring the instructional block for Read 180. So how often are you all monitoring?
Daily.
Daily. Gotcha. And so it's you and your entire team?
It's me. So the only 3 people in the building that's not instructing is myself, my assistant principal, and business manager. Everyone else is with students, even my secretary. So with that, we're going in, we're monitoring and supporting, but with that 4th grade group that does it in the afternoon, I had to have a meeting with my business manager. I have assigned her to that cohort of students specifically to go in the second half of the day, because that's when their intervention takes place. And so when you have the standard 9 o'clock intervention, it's easy. Everybody's on deck, the 3 of us, we're walking. But when it comes back around to that 1 o'clock intervention block, there were some loopholes there because we've all gotten to the weeds and seeds of the day. And so now it is her priority or responsibility to make sure she's conducting the observation of the second half intervention block.
So that's your additional intervention block on top of your traditional your morning one. And so you added a second one as support.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Grade. Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. The only thing I need is the continuation of my content specialist. She put a little bug in my ear. She said, Tiffany, now that you're no longer on the list, there is some mention of us not coming as frequently. And I said, no, I think you need to still come as frequently so we can remain off the list. So that's my only need, because, yes, so that's my only need. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Yes, ma'am. It's time for a break. First group, kudos. Mays cluster in the house. So we will return at 10:30. 10:30, please.
Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Test 1 2.
And then I'm hoping that we then see some deeper dives around learner profiles and what that means, and approaches to learning and what that means. Our grow is getting IB to be our main lens for all instruction. I am very much a constructionist. It's real easy for me. Robin goes, oh yes, we had many fights on that. It is real easy for me to do IB. And I think as we get where 90% of our kids are being successful, we can let go a whole lot in our building so that IB is truly that our kids come out to be people who make decisions and have actions. So everything we do around our instructional framework, IB is getting pushed to the top. It makes it difficult because we have a lot to learn about how to lead that. So my team is going to the March, the end of March, there is a training in Chicago for IB leaders, and several of us are going. That paperwork's coming your way, Dr. G. I got some people taking that XM class, so that's where we are. IB staffing. I have 2 DSE vacancies and 3 paras. Y'all, my paras are dropping like flies. They're not leaving the district. Oh. They're coming out of the classroom.
To be teachers, yeah.
They're going into secretary jobs and things like that. So I have to figure out how to make that more enticing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, so one of the things that has happened with the rules at professional standards and HR is we are growing our own DSE teachers. I grew 2 out of the building, and they're staying. They've been at Toomer a long time. I have another one who's going to fill one of those vacancies, who's ready to go, and she graduates in May. And we'll put her right in that position. So I do appreciate the ability to do that. As far as staffing, it looks like I'm only going to have 3 people leave this year. That's amazing for me, as I've had 10, 12, 14 in the last 3 years. So it looks like I'm only going to have 3, and they are all leaving the profession. So I'm really happy with that.
Thanks, Caroline. So could you talk in the next slide with your attendance? Because what we see is that you didn't have that much of a dip from the chronically absent. And so could you talk about your best practices as far as attendance?
Well, the care team actually works really hard. I have my MTSS RTI specialist leads the care team, and she is very much type A. Let's follow the protocol. Let's make sure it works. I have an excellent young social worker. I have some team members. The team members who are on that care team are very much interested in the success of students. And so they are very intentional. I have a data person on that care team who keeps up with the data so they don't have to. Everything's ready to go every week. They meet Fridays in just a few minutes without fail. Now, then, of course, we have all the regular incentives. We could do some phone calls and things like that. But one of the things I'm stealing from somebody over here, I don't know who it was, I wrote it down, is a parent meeting, not just a phone call, but come in. It's kind of like an SST meeting. I want to show you what is happening to your baby, especially these 5th graders who just say, I'm not going to school. And the mamas go, okay. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me. So we're gonna implement that. I'm gonna bring that back next week, talk to the team as we figure out how to do that.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to your map data.
We can highlight I don't have a discipline problem, y'all.
Oh, good job. No discipline.
Well, so all of y'all who are new, that's a new thing for Toomer.
All right, so I'm looking at your map data and also looking at your SIP strategies where you talk about addressing Tier 1 instruction,
yes,
but through the lens of personalized learning. So talk about how you have use personalized learning to impact what's happening in Tier 1?
Yes. So what we did as we continue to focus on Tier 1 instruction, as we looked at this data in December, I said to Jamie and Taruko, I said, we have to do something different. Something's wrong. We're missing something. So whatever I wrote in that email, Jamie came up with prime time, and it's based on all of the components that we're learning about in personalized learning this year. And so that's how at the Tier 1 level, we intentionally focus the teacher's attention on your kids who are accelerated. Let them go. If you do, at the beginning of your big idea cycle, you do a major lesson and you got an exit ticket that says they got it, then let go of them. You don't send them off to work independently. Then the kids who are engaged and are working, so you meet with them for just a little bit every day after your mini lesson. The kids that are slipping or that don't have it, you meet with them every day for an extended amount of time. You design instruction through the lens of personalized learning. That engaged group, the middle group, they have a choice board. They can go practice however they want to. We're using a lot of the DOE frameworks for the accelerated group. And then we're using very intentional instructional strategies that come out on Mondays in the data talk for that group that struggles. And this week's data talk showed that we are getting a bump already on the weekly learning targets. The other thing we did, of course, is design learning targets that are real. We did grasp hold of that PD, and then we turned it into what Toomer does with things so that kids can actually, this is why I'm sitting in the room right now. And that should help a lot.
Can you talk about your foundations, what you're seeing in early literacy in your K-2 classrooms or K-3 classrooms with foundations implementation?
Yes, so our foundations is great. I don't have any problem with it. If you look at our fluency data further down the map, you'll see that most of our kids are exceeding expectations in K1 and 2. And what you'll see that the success in the map second graders is there's only 25% in the red now. So those practices that we're putting in place are working so that we're not scrambling in 3, 4, and 5 in the future. And I happen to know it's 58 children that are in that 49%. We have case managed every one of them. We know exactly what's going on with them.
Very good. All right, next slide, please.
And I just wanted to lift that tumor is off of the state designated list. They moved up a category, correct? Yes, I think I'm on it.
We're going to talk about that. Carola. She's such a mess.
Thank you for saying that you're going to steal something from somebody on this side, because that's what this is all about. One of the things that we'd like to hear is for us to collaborate, co-create, and steal ideas.
Sure.
So that's good.
Yes. And then to look at that Tier 1 instruction, I do want to give a shout out to David. He has let go of his instructional coach in literacy, partner with my reading specialist. But I don't. That's okay. I won't. I got my own.
That's what she said.
And David told me today that they've hooked up with a teacher at Morningside who's teaching 3rd grade that takes that continued word study work, and they work together all the time. And David, thank you for letting go of Dr. Miller. I don't mean really, but you know. Okay, HMH data. So we struggle with System 44. When I looked at the data again in December, I brought those System 44 kids together. We had a meeting. I said, y'all, let's have a meeting. Here's the data. Here's where we're supposed to be. What are we going to do? Ms. Brown, it's no fun. I said, okay. And so we looked at, it was the monitoring piece in the classroom. So we have instituted Breakfast Club. which is not for the intervention kids. The intervention kids are staying with their teachers who know exactly what they need. But Breakfast Club is getting pulled out from 7:30 to 8:30 every morning by all the other support staff, and that is that 40 to 60 percentile kids from the MAP to get them ready with test prep and some content building in for Georgia Milestones. That's working great. So that should improve, it was my point. All right, next slide. There we go. Okay, so this is the slide that gets us in trouble. In that we, first of all, I have a new CELT that came in October. That was a good thing. She is a coaching CELT. It took her a minute to get her feet on the ground and to clean up some of the mess that we had created in the previous 2 years with the CELT that was there. And as that is now working, we revamped the schedule some, so all special ed teachers come to PLCs. All special ed teachers own their data on Monday's Data Talk. They own their planning and share the strategies they're using on Fridays for the next week. That has just started. So with that should solve some of this subgroup problem for students with disabilities that got us on the other list. And if you pull up the proficiency and above, you'll see that there are a lot of kids in developing and above. Well, that told me we were missing the standards. That yes, the babies can learn, but you're not hitting the standards. So we have addressed that also, especially with our resource teacher in 3-5. And I think I need to put some time in there to have that fixed. The other subgroup data that bothers me, of course, is our black-white data. As you see, our Tier 1 instruction is effective with our white kids. Their data continues to grow. With our black kids, you're not seeing that. So I have joined the Leadership Academy. Thank you to the district. I don't know who's paying for it. I'm not. So the Equity Office is paying for that. And that program is a 3-year program to develop leaders to lead a school that is culturally responsive. And so we have started that process. I'm very excited about what that's going to do for our schools, because this has to be addressed.
Can I ask a question real quick about the special education piece? How are you monitoring those new strategies that are being implemented, just so we don't wait until we get this data back in the spring?
That's correct, right. So my CELT and my instructional coach are partners now. For instance, yesterday there was a DSE meeting. Both were sitting in the meeting. Both were leading the meeting. Both were participating. And then so Jamie will add that to his walkthroughs.
All right, let's move to your needs slide.
Oh, it gets bigger as I sit here. I go, oh, that's a good idea. I need that too. Again, thank you for the math support that is working. I got a text. Pratt is glossing EIP first grade classroom right now as we speak, so we can figure out what's going on those kids' heads. So that's much appreciated. I need us to continue our Tier 1 instructional strategies as a district. I need my teachers to, when they talk to other teachers, they go, yeah, we're working on that too. We have to continue to define what that looks like. Yes, and added that, I do need another psychologist for just a little bit more. We are still backlogged. I got a contract psychologist who's doing our reevals. My psychologist that is to the building cannot possibly get through the pipeline that we have. So I need a little help with that.
So I will say we do have 19 school psych vacancies.
Yes, I know.
But I will say also we have a pretty aggressive recruiting strategy at the upcoming national conference.
Great.
So I'm hoping to make that better for next year.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. All right.
Thank you so much, Principal Brown. Folks, please welcome to the podium Principal Ernest Sessoms from Dunbar Elementary School. Okay, I wish everyone hadn't left. All righty. Clicker. Good morning. I definitely want to shout out and celebrate that Dunbar Elementary School is now an IB World School. As of January 4th, when we got back from the new year, we received a letter on our IB.org stating that we had satisfied all the requirements. So we're so excited about that. That was one of the things that the superintendent and the community really wanted when I was hired 5 years ago, and they were asking me all these different questions about how can you get Dunbar IB authorized. And so that was very, very important to me to bring that to fruition for our community of Black and brown children at Dunbar Elementary School. In terms of our growth, of course, we got to sustain it, right? So, of course, we already know we have that visit coming up in the next 5 years. So how do we get better? How do we grow? How do we truly make IB the umbrella of instruction and transdisciplinary instruction for our school? So that's what we're currently working on, making sure those units are revised. We have an IB coordinator that does a dynamic job in having those weekly PLCs with our teachers without question, making sure they're going through the units, defining the lessons, letting me know what materials and supplies they need to order for products and for those different exhibition items. So sustainability is definitely important. And of course, as we're getting into that transdisciplinary aspect, that's not something that happens overnight. That is an ongoing process. So as the math standards change, the transdisciplinary units will change. So it's ever evolving. So we're excited about that. Mm-hmm. Good question. We had our walk in September, I believe it was, and got notified in November that we had 2 matters to address.
Okay.
So we submitted our information in December before the break to address those matters, and then we were able to get our notification by January 4th.
Okay, but you didn't have to come back and do another
No.
walk? Okay.
No.
Okay.
For us, it was more of some of the units, some things that were documents that we needed to upgrade to show evidence of.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And I think the IB coordinators, they do a lot of networking. So they always work together to know the IB schools who have it, what should we be looking for. So they do a lot of collaboration amongst themselves.
So Ernest, this next slide obviously is about attendance, and you're strong with attendance take rate. You don't see the dip in the not chronically absent. I know that you are intentional about engaging your families, including like on Zoom, like even virtually. So just love to hear like best practices around attendance or engagement.
Absolutely. You may have to stop me on the timer on this one.
Yeah.
We do a lot of work with our care team and student attendance committee as well. We meet back to back. We have a tier 1 plan where we have monthly incentives for our students every month. So we send flyers home. They already know the whole year at a glance. This upcoming week, next week, we're sending all of our kids who have 2 or less absences and 2 or less tardies. We're going on a trip to see Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever. So that's a big, big deal. Kids, of course, are making sure they're coming to school, and of course, tardies are always that Achilles heel. So sometimes kids have to influence their parents. So I got to get to school on time. I want to go to the movie. So every month we have an incentive. Our committee has also been diligent in sending home those letters to let parents know when you're in danger of having so many absences or tardies. So that's been effective because now at every parent meeting that we have, that's a topic of discussion. Every time they get those letters, they know that it's important now. Sometimes if schools don't express that or communicate that, they think it's okay. Oh, we know we're there. But now that we've been overly communicating via letter, via meetings, I think that they're buying in more to it. I've used the analogy before in our parent meetings that I know I can't go to work late. I know I can't go to work with excessive absences and keep my job. And these are life lessons that we want to teach our kids now, that they need to come to school on time and they need to have less absences because that's their job right now as a student. So that's kind of the analogy I use with my kids. And of course, we're looking at those specific students. I will say we spoke to Jennifer Owens, who came by, had a great visit with us about data. Sometimes kids don't leave our list, that leave our school. And that impacts this data as well. They don't drop off. And so we don't know where they go and how they're doing in their new schools, but they don't leave. So they could have left. If they've been with us for 30 days, they stay. They could have came for us the first day of school, left after 30 days, had poor attendance. We've never seen them since September, but they're still on our data, impacting our numbers. So that's something that's happening, but I brought that to our attention as well.
All right, let's go to the next slide, please.
All righty.
So looking at your map data, in your SIP strategies, I see a big focus on writing, which is hugely important for milestones. We know that. But this map data does not reflect writing. So what have you been able to pull out as far as specific areas of growth from this data? And then what are you doing to address those areas of growth?
Absolutely. Tier 1 instruction. We've had conversations with Jamel as well about Fontes and Pinnell and the type of support and resource it gives our teachers. And it doesn't always have everything in it. So we've been having to pull from other things for that Tier 1 instruction that aligns with the state's scope and sequence versus the FNP scope and sequence. We have to go and move around a little bit with that book, with the teacher's guide. So Tier 1 instruction, and thank goodness that we were able to roll that out during our January meeting with the district in terms of focusing on that, because that was a way for us to really give them the overarching lens of what Tier 1 instruction is, have our conversations with teachers of why it's important, talk back and forth about the challenges of it, the benefits of it. So that's important as well. So definitely beefing up our Tier 1 instruction in ELA is going to help. Being more intentional with our small group instruction during the ELA block. You can't just put your kids on the computer and think the computer is going to do all the work for you. So we've been having the consultant who's been coming in frequently from HMH meeting with our teachers. It is a big lift. So that's why I'm glad we're having them coming, supporting us for a second year. We couldn't learn everything the first year that we need to learn about Systems 44, iReady, and HMH. They're learning more about the codes and the color coding and what we need to do if they're in this area for a longer period of time. What resources do we have available to go into our small groups to pull groups of students? So that's been impactful, but we're still getting there. So that's still being taken over by our teachers and being ingested by our teachers. Small group instruction, of course, now that we're a CSI turnaround school, part of our STAP is for our small group instruction to be a pivotal point of monitoring and support for our teachers, and then having that data piece of how do we monitor that the small group instruction is being effective every week. So that's something that's coming forward with our staff for this month up until the middle of March, I believe. And of course, writing, can't negate that. Last school year when we heard that students that do not score a minimum of proficiency in writing will not score the composite proficiency in ELA on milestones, that was an eye-opener for me. So writing every day has definitely been a culture in our school. Having those work samples displayed monthly on our quality work boards, that's just one tip of the iceberg. But now that we have our weekly data talks, that's what's coming to the data talks every week. They're bringing their students' work samples, evidence, having those conversations about where students are, what are the next steps. Are we going to address these needs whole group? Because there's a lot of our students that have these issues, or are we going to pull them in small groups during the ELA block to work on these issues? So writing is definitely at the forefront of making sure that kids have a chance to perform on the milestones, because we don't want kids coming back with zeros. They just copy the text. We know what those scores are like when we get your milestones. And when we had the right score data, I think it was before we left for the break, we looked at our right score data. Our fifth graders are doing a lot better, but they've had more opportunities to write because they're older, right? But we really are struggling with our third graders and getting them to reach the bar of expectation. It is a high bar, but we're going to work our best to make sure we maximize them getting those points, at least 4 out of the 7.
Yeah, thank you for lifting the Tier 1 and what you're doing for Tier 1, because that's huge. The other piece is talk to us a little bit about the Saturday, how you're incorporating some kind of Saturday Academy to reach certain learners.
Absolutely. So using CARES funds, last school year we actually did after-school tutorial. It was not successful. We didn't have a good participation rate from the students. We had the staff, but the students didn't stay. So oftentimes we had teachers with 2 kids, and that was not how it was designed. So we're moving towards Super Saturdays. February and March, 7 Saturdays. We're going to focus on some specific groups, up to 80 kids. We're trying to do like a 1 to 10 student-teacher ratio. We're focusing explicitly on writing to text. Yeah. So we're including the reading comprehension along with writing to text and with math personalization. So those are our 2 focus areas. There's only 3 hours for the kids. And so we're going to make sure we maximize that. We're offering music as our enrichment. They love our music teacher. Shout out to Mr. Cook. He's the best. So that's going another hook to get them to come every Saturday. And then there's a field trip at the end for perfect attendance. So we kind of built that in as well. So we offered it to our current staff, but a lot of our teachers are tired. They don't want to come back on a Saturday. So thank you to some of my colleagues who were able to send me some dynamic instructors and teachers my way that they're going to come and support some of our Dunbar scholars on Saturdays as well.
That's great. Thank you.
Looking at your foundations data, not foundations data, your MAP fluency data, which is impacted by foundations, do you know who those students are that were in the red at the beginning? So we've had conversations about this specific look of the data. So we know some kids have been pulled out because they have moved on to oral reading fluency. But do you know who those kids are that were red in the beginning, foundational, and where they are now, and what you're doing to support those kids?
Absolutely. I know exactly who they are. They're kindergarten and first graders. And so we were fortunate enough to have another rock star from the ELA department, Ms. Walker, to come out and look at our unit assessment data with our teachers and seeing where are the gaps that are being missed. And so what we found is our teachers were giving that generic foundations lesson where they were hitting just the same skills each time, and they weren't being intentional based on the unit data of, I don't need to go through the whole, all the consonants. I can do the vowels, and I'm going to hit these different digraphs or sounds based on the data. So now we're going to do that. We have remediation plans in place for those grade levels, including third as well. We have remediation plans where they're having to go back to a specific unit and then backtrack a little bit to fill those gaps.
All right, kudos HMH, you're on the right track. Good job.
1 point away in systems.
I see.
However,
close.
We at Dunbar, we do graduate release on Mondays. So that's the time when they don't necessarily have a chance to get to their centers to get online. So that could possibly be it. And of course, when you have that one day and you have those holidays on Mondays or those days off, that may impact it. But we've typically gotten to our 15 or higher. Our goal is 20.
Yes, perfect.
So we're looking at these at the subgroup data, specifically your special ed data. We see kind of a flip from reading and math. Are there any strategies, collaboration, purposeful intentions in math that you could also apply to reading?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things I spoke with myself as we're looking at specifically our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students in SPED is that they're majority in resource. And so looking at that, I told myself the next time we have any eligibility meetings for our students, I would like to be present. And I want to be present so that I can make sure I explain and communicate to my parents the options, truly the options, and these are the pros and cons for each. I want them to make the informed decision, but I think I want to make sure I communicate that to my parents. I feel very similarly to some of you in the room, as well as Principal Moman, about if you're not in the classroom with that Tier 1 instruction and grade level, then you're missing something. And it's hard for the special ed teacher to not only give you that and your IEP goals. It's just hard. And of course, when we pull kids out, they're coming out during the ELA block, during the Tier 1 block. So just that format of service can be addressed when we have those eligibility meetings.
Okay, so the last slide, let's get to your needs.
Oh, okay. I have some needs. So in the spirit of advocacy, I'm going to tell you what my needs are. I was hoping Lisa was still here, but she dipped out.
We are recording.
It's budget season. Hey, Lisa Brackett. In the spirit of budget season and also in conjunction with becoming now a CSI turnaround school, now as I'm planning my budget, I'm able to get the support and expertise in my building that I have been lacking for the past 5 years. Being my 5th year as principal, I've had to abolish positions year after year because Dunbar is rated on the same SFF as students across the district. Even though it's $4,500 per pupil, the pupils I have really need more than that. And so I just put that out there as a plea because once we get off this list, as some of my colleagues have done, we have to sustain the work, and having those additional persons in our buildings really adds value to our performance and our student achievement. In the past, this current school year, I only have 2 second grade classes. I typically have 3. And I only have 2 fifth grade classes, which I typically have 3. One of my 5th grade teachers resigned December 6th. So finding another quality candidate mid-year is tough. So I have a new teacher who has some experience, and we were definitely supporting him, but it's a heavy lift. So just keeping in mind budgets specifically for non-CSI turnaround schools, advocacy, as I will be one of those again. Number 2, continued math support. Ms. Pratt, she's been coming, and she supports K-5. I'm going to advocate as a CSI school. I need another person. I need someone to work with my K-2 teachers and K-2 coach. I need someone simultaneously working with my 3-5. I don't need them to have to switch and wait and take turns on support because there's only one person. So I'm going to ask for that. Ms. Pratt is amazing, but she's only one. And I know she has other schools that she's being stretched with. So I would love an additional person. Please clone her. I'm already getting that instructional support and learning walks. We have one coming up March 17th. And of course, the state already provides their own schedule of learning walks. I would like to talk a little bit about math intervention. I would love to have some conversations outside of this meeting about how we can more personalize the math intervention block, similarly to how we do for the reading block with HMH. So of course, there's a small group component where teachers are giving kids what they need in that 30-minute block. I would love to entertain doing that as well with math without doing the whole group math, do the math presentation. Because I feel like some of my kids are getting left behind, or some of my kids are not getting what they need. So I would love to see how we can do some flexibility with that in terms of that 30 minutes. It's only 30 minutes, but it is 30 minutes that we cannot spare to lose. You saw our data. We have 6% proficiency in math on milestones. So I really need to be very intentional about that 30 minutes. And I'm a big advocate for small group instruction, so I would love to try to get that into that 30-minute math block as well. Mental health providers. So of course, we're coming out of COVID, but that hits a lot of schools, that hits a lot of companies, and it's including our mental health providers. Family Ties is our mental health provider. They have not been able to send someone to my school until this month. And they're only able to come once a week. I have a bigger caseload than that for the students that I serve and for the families I serve. You know, I'm not just thinking about students, I'm thinking about support for the parents as well. So I'm asking for a second provider to be assigned to Dunbar to help us with that caseload. I truly feel if we have that, not only will it impact achievement, it's going to impact that suspension rate and the behaviors in the building, because we have kids crying out for help, but I'm only able to have someone come once a week. And that person's human. They have sick days too. Sometimes they won't come that week because they're under the weather. You know, I understand that, but they're understaffed, and I need a company that I can provide a little bit more. I am looking at my budget for next year about doing some internal school-based services, so that is coming up. But now, as we still have not cashed out this semester, I would love to have another provider.
All right, thank you, Ernest.
Thank you so much, Principal Sessoms. Folks, we have for you a pair of success. We have 2 finalists coming up from the 2022.
Ernest was 3 finalists.
3?
Yeah.
3 finalists. 3 finalists. 3 finalists. A trifecta in the Jackson and Mays cluster led by Dr. Goodwine. Go on. Welcome, Dr. Andrew Lovett, principal of Benteen Elementary School.
Good morning, everyone. I brought this up here so I would not forget the additional needs that I've written down since being here, listening to my great colleagues. So I'm going to turn to that page and leave it open, like you do in church. All right, so good morning. I'm Andrew Lovett, the principal of Benteen Elementary School. Very proud to be here. Our signature programming is International Baccalaureate. Our GLOW. So over the last few years, we have hired several new staff members during the pandemic, and none of them have been trained. Not a single one. I have 21 teachers who need to be level 1 trained at Benteen. So what we're going to do is that we have decided we're going to sacrifice staff meetings in March to do the at your own pace module IB training so we can get it done during staff meeting times. There's no excuses. And if you don't complete it, you owe me a check for $480. They know I'm crazy, so they know that I'm going to hold them accountable for that because we have to. It's not just for compliance sake for IB, but it's because our children aren't getting the best experience because they're not IB certified and trained. So we want to make sure we provide them that opportunity. But they know my admin team is going to divide ourselves up. So we have a cohort that we'll work with and support as a part of our independent learning to ensure that we're all working towards a common goal. Our growth. So we got IB authorized in 2021, May of 2021. Super excited, but the work really began after you got authorized. And so we tried to integrate IB into as part of regular instructional PLC. We discovered that that sounds good on paper, but sometimes you need to have a time just for the IB coordinator to talk with and sit with to help them plan, review, reflect, and adjust their plan. And so we reinstituted that this semester to make sure that as we continue to move through with our planners as our scope and sequence, that we're getting down to teaching the content that needs to be taught in the space. Number of vacancies. Since last time we were here, I had to hire 3 special ed teachers. I had 1 promotion, 1 resignation, and 1 additional one that I've earned. They were all filled before we went home for Christmas break. So super excited about that. I got 2 teachers, 1 from out of state and 1 who is returning back to the district, who are both ESOL certified as well as special ed certified, as well as early childhood certified, which is a big win for us because my previous team has grown and we've grown together, but many of them did not have the early childhood education background, and that makes a difference when you're thinking about how do you scaffold instruction for children who need main idea in 5th grade but know it was theme in 1st grade. So like be able to connect those pieces made a big difference. And I promoted a paraprofessional who was in school to become a special ed teacher. She's doing phenomenal. So right now we have 2 para positions and a kindergarten DLI para. As the only DLI school present today, the DLI hiring can be quite a challenge, and you'll see one of my needs is some additional supports, possibly visa sponsorships, when we're trying to find high-quality candidates who are certified in early childhood, as well as being bilingual.
So same thing, right, with attendance, is that we're seeing that it's just strong, like schools are strong with your take rate, attendance rate, chronically absent. Just talk about your best practices at Penn Team.
The best practice, one of the benefits, we're in our vacation house at East Lake, but one of the benefits of being there and having 30 student increase in enrollment, 33 student increase in enrollment over our projection, I got to hire a full-time office clerk. Previously, my secretary was the secretary, the bookkeeper, the office clerk, the attendance clerk, everything in the front office, and if she was ever absent, we kind of fell apart. And so we were fortunate to, with increased enrollment, make our parent liaison full-time and make our hire an office clerk. And so part of her EPAC goals is, I need this number to always stay at 100. And so what we do is that she checks in and makes sure we have a substitute. She calls the room, Miss So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, take your attendance, or she goes to the room to get it. So like that has really helped us make sure that we have an accurate attendance, because they also, when they take the attendance tardies for kids who come in late, the office staff goes in and makes the adjustment now. So it's not depending upon the teachers to remember, oh, Andrew came in late. They do it from the book that they have to keep a record of. So we're getting more accurate attendance. And actually, this was done a while back. So our attendance rate is 92.9% as of Monday. And we know that being chronically absent is a challenge. We're 5 miles from our home location. And so we know that that is a barrier that we just can't overcome. It's a necessary barrier. But we had to do what we had to do. But one of the things that we're most excited about is that every week in my weekly updates to the teachers, I identify, here's our take rate, here's the grade that has the highest attendance for the overall, and then those students get celebrated. So they know that every week they know what their take rate is and what grade level is having the highest take rate. We also acknowledge perfect attendance homerooms over the intercom in the afternoons, and we also do it as part of our video recorded morning show. And my social worker has been going around giving out incentives to students for perfect attendance, being in school on time. We're also bringing back next Tuesday our in the hallway parties for perfect attendance to get kids excited about coming to school and being present. So we've been really working on that. We are looking at ways to overcome the barrier of not being in our community, but we've been working hard to get the numbers what we have now. And parents are partnering to carpool and bring kids to school. My suspension rate has gone up a little bit. Every year you get a new cast, and so I have some new cast members in my production, and sometimes they don't really agree with the director, so we have to kind of be creative in how we support them. But we know that it's a few kids who are repeat offenders, and so we spend some targeted support for those students to ensure that they're getting what they need. But suspension is our last resort, but there are some things that you do that we have to assign a consequence, but we don't suspend for the sake of suspending. It is truly makes you understand and they're reflective about what they have done that results in that action to occur. But we are really proud of the fact that our number is less than 1%, or as low as it is.
All right, let's look at your map data. So talk about from fall to winter, the beginning number has increased, the number of kids that are there. So tell us about what was happening for a semester, what was working then, anything that you're continuing, and what are you stopping that was not working?
Gotcha. So I have a verb that I use called benteened. And so benteened. Historically, our data, when kids come to milestones, our kids either go up to proficient or distinguished, or they drop down to beginning. We've been losing ground consistently in the middle ground. So like, what are we doing? How do we stop that? And so we're doing two things. Next week, we're starting our after-school tutorial. This is the first year we're not letting everyone who wants to come, Mama says you need tutorial to come. We're being very targeted, looking at their MAP score. So any student who scores between the 37th percentile and the 57th percentile in MAP for reading and math are invited to attend. And we've changed the structure of tutorial. So it's no longer going to room with your teacher. No, you're going to be assigned a room based on your area of need. It may not be your home teacher. We're putting people by your strengths. So if you're a strong reading person, you have the kids who are in reading. You're a strong math person, you have those who are strong in math. There are 2 adults in every room. You have a small group portion. We use Lexia, and you also have some, what's the other one? HMH individual. So we really have been strategic about how we provide support for those kids, because these are the children who don't get HMH sometimes because they don't qualify, they don't meet the threshold, but now they get Lexia, they get small group, and they get some intentional direct support around how we can move them forward, because we feel like if we can capture those kids who are on the cusp, we can really push them over. That's the first thing. Second thing, I went back to my arsenal of information, and so we're starting to realize that teachers are teaching. They're working really hard. My question is, are you dragging children as hostages, or are they coming along with you voluntarily? So we're looking at how we actively monitor instruction. When you're a teacher, you can't go a whole lesson and not know who's with you. The test should not be, oh my God, they didn't get it. You should have known along the way that Andrew and John and Sally, whoever didn't understand the concept, and what were you doing to help make sure that we were getting that content to them. So we're really working on, what does it look like? Why is it important? What can it do for us? Because I realize most of my staff is brand new to BNT or the APS, and they don't know that piece of the active monitoring process. And so, why maybe because it is good teaching practice, sometimes we'd be reminded what good teaching practices are. So we're starting that next Tuesday in our staff meeting to go over, what do you do? How do you know? And we're not a relay school, but I believe in the process of like looking at and knowing to walk away that it may not be an exit ticket, but you need to know how the kids are doing. And some people hide behind dry erase boards. Oh, they're interactive. But when they erase it, what record did you have that he or she understood it? And so we're trying to change that narrative a little bit. So that's one thing we're doing, to really focus on that middle ground, because every year we go up in proficiency, but we also seem to go up in beginning. So we're like, how do we stop that? So we're trying to do those 2 actions to really capture those kids in that middle ground, to keep them where they are and push them up top.
Gotcha. Thank you, Andrew. So a quick question about just your monitoring at Benteen, you and your leadership team. How often is that happening, going into classrooms, observing this tier 1 instruction and giving feedback?
Not as often as I would like, but my coaches go every day. My AP has a schedule that we go. He keeps me on schedule as best he can about when to go observe people each week. And the idea is that when we go, it's not just for teacher keys. And when we go, we try to take anything the right way, because they get intimidated by the fact you're in the room. Is it my observation? No. I'm here to listen, to sit, to observe, to coach. And we always cycle back, either through an email or a conversation that says, hey, this is what I saw today. I wonder. And I'm always a person, I taught high school, so I don't know everything about elementary schools, but my coaches do, my AP does. So when I have a question, I go to them and have dialogue about, hey, I observed Mr. White's class show, and I observed this. Here's my thought about what I see. What are we doing to support him or her in moving forward with ABC? So we are in the classrooms, not as much as I would like to be myself, but my team is charged with making sure we get in the classrooms, document it, record it, and support it. We've also identified that my K2 block, my pre-K through 2 block, is where most of my new teachers are located, and so we have really been specific about providing more of a coaching cycle for those teachers to make sure that if they're new, they know how to start a lesson, what to do with a lesson. I'm also looking at lesson plans. Like, I take time on Mondays to look at it myself, because people were hiding behind, ain't nobody checking. Boom, surprise, I'm checking. And so like that has really helped people understand that it's not just about turning it in for compliance sake. That's one part of it. But you got to make sure we're doing it for the sake of knowing what you're going to teach and how you're going to teach it. Because you're teaching a whole class, your lesson plan is empty. I got a question.
So that's a new structure that you put in place as far as looking at lesson plans and providing feedback?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, so last question on the data. Talk to me about Foundations implementation and what you're seeing. You just talked about getting into classrooms and trying to increase that more. So how often are they observing Foundations implementation, and what are you seeing?
So one of the challenges with Foundations is that, again, my lower grades, K1 and 2, is where my new teachers are living. And so my teachers who teach Foundations in kindergarten and first grade in particular, 50% of them need extra support. One of them is brand new to teaching. One of them is on the other end of teaching and preparing to retire. So sometimes it takes a little longer to get that person to kind of get with the program of expectation of what Foundations is based on what they've learned and done in their career. But we've got them on board now. So we go in to observe. My calendar for the month of February, I'm only going to see writing instruction and Foundation instructions. Make sure that people don't hide behind, oh, he didn't come around for writing. I came in, I'm going to come intentionally for writing and Foundations because we're doing it. Jamel Regan's in her department, Tanya Sperley, Kim, Desiree have come and sat with my coach, come and sat with my teachers, observed teachers, and done those pull out and push in things to help support. I've gone into observe, and again, I taught high school math, but when I go into a classroom, I always ask my coaches, so help me if I'm wrong. Like, I observed this, should it be? And we talk about giving specific feedback with targeted, actionable next steps, make sure that we're not giving them just random generic thing feedback, but work when you're doing your whole group. This should be whole group, this should be small group. Give the children time to practice right in their Foundations book. So we're giving them those detailed pieces, and we're starting to see the impact of those observations and that feedback result.
Let me ask you this question. How does your DLI, your data for your DLI students compare to this overall school data?
So historically, interesting point, there's a new dashboard that they built for us. And so my DLI students are outperforming my traditional students, but it's not a blowout. It's not a big difference. And I was excited because we've been really intentional about figuring out how do we make sure the DLI program and the traditional program don't compete for achievement in the sake of like, one is like outpace the other. So we really give time to work with our traditional teachers as well, because they need the same support, if not more, because they're teaching more content. And so we spent some time working with them. So we've seen some positive movement to know that it's not just the DLI kids that are carrying the achievement, it's everyone carrying the achievement. So we're excited about that. Because that was one concern as we've gotten up to the upper grades, is like, oh, your score is going because you're DLI. No, it's not just DLI. It's all the children in instruction. So we're working on maintaining that sense of structure. We're also trying to push everyone to get ESOL endorsed, because we realize that those strategies are good for children, not just ESOL children. So we're working on those pieces, but like I know that we've been looking at the data and seeing that there's some, I think one of our highest performing teachers for this winter mount was a non-DLI teacher. And so we're excited about seeing that level of intentionality. Now the class size is smaller in my traditional classes, but we're still excited about that movement and that momentum with that. We're working on it.
Okay.
And part of it is we got to influence the new students, and so we try to get our kids scheduled in really quickly. Mm-hmm. So they start showing up in HMH. It's like, wait, who is this child? Came last week, and so now he has 0, so that's killing some of the other things. So we're fixing that, but the teachers know they get a printout every Tuesday, an email from me that says grade level, not individual teacher, but grade level. Mm-hmm. Great job. Here's your HMH data. Good. Or, here, listen, what's happened with these students? Here's your attached report. Go sit with Andrew and find out a plan. And so they've been pulling kids in small group. They've been monitoring better, and they look forward to seeing like who is doing what. Good. We've also started celebrating the teachers and the students who are meeting their time and their goals. So it'll kind of incentivize everyone. Mm-hmm. We use the teacher treasure tower to kind of get people like, I have gift cards now. Who's going to get a gift card for making your kids get to the minute? So we're trying different things, but I know that I was like 1, but we had like 3 kids who had just started who we put in, and when I pull this data, that's what happened to that number.
And make sure your kindergarten teachers and students too are getting used to using the platform consistently. Okay. All right, I think our time is up. So let's talk about your needs.
So my needs. I need culturally relevant professional development. Here's what I'm starting to observe. This is a safe space. There are people who are not comfortable teaching children of other demographic, and so, or how they teach children of demographic, they're afraid to to be disrespectful, to be not sensitive to their child's cultural developmental needs, or how we discipline children who look like us or look different from us varies a little bit. Not intentionally, but I think we don't realize some of our implicit bias. And so I need some help with figuring out how do I do that. We went from being 60% African American, 40% Hispanic to 45% African American, 47% African American, 29% Hispanic, 15% white, 9% two or more races in 7 years. And my staff, while we're starting to reflect some of that, it is still a shift for many people who've only worked in a space where it's been primarily children of color. So we're trying to figure out how we make sure that everyone is treated fairly and equitably in the classroom as well as with discipline. Second thing, we're trying to figure out with our new focus on tutorial, how do we make sure we measure the progress? So we're looking for, and this is also an ask for next year, as a district, it would be nice to have a data or an assessment system that we can utilize to build assessments to measure and track and monitor the progress of our kids in our building. We used to have Phoenix, but the issue with Phoenix was the database for the questions was old. We couldn't use it because the district was using the same question for the district benchmarks. But as a school, we need something we can utilize to capture and automate some of this thing that we're doing by hand for our data. In the past, we've had Master Connect. But it has its own challenges, but we need something that we can utilize to kind of really map and show what we're doing and how we're doing it. Along with that, with assessments like Love Right Score, glad we're doing the pre and the post, it would be helpful if we could maybe put those dates on the testing calendar. Because sometimes if you don't see it, if you don't know it's one thing, you may forget it's coming up and we're like, oh my gosh, tomorrow. But we utilize that testing calendar as our main piece, make sure we stay on top of our assessment pieces. Strategies to help with our attendance. So like we know we are in a swing space, but sometimes those people may have other ideas how we can help with those kids who don't come to school because they missed the bus. We can't go in our car. I was a car person. Get in the car, honey, wash your mouth off, get your breakfast. We can't do it anymore. So we're trying to think, how do we become innovative about how we utilize and engage kids when they can't get to school? And then the last thing, clear, concise, consistent communication from all departments. And that goes from, there's one big pet peeve, ink. We purchase printers from the list, the district has purchased printers from, and then the teachers, once a semester, once a year, need to replenish their ink. We were told they could do that through Nimbus, but now they're being told we can't order ink because you have too many printers in your school, or we can't order ink because of whatever reason. And that becomes a barrier, so I'm ordering from all my teachers. Like I can't, the back and forth, I talk to everybody and their mom about it, we've gone up the chain of command, I just need to get ink to my teachers. So that's a big issue. Also, to make sure we communicate, because I have teachers who represent or serve or go to different trainings, different departments, and they get different messages from every department. And that's hard because the coaches get a message from teaching and learning about science assessments or benchmarks that the principal didn't know about. Like, how do I lead effectively if I don't know what's coming out to my people so I can get ahead of it and put a plan in place to implement it? That's it.
Yeah, I just thank you, Dr. Lovett, Dr. Lovett. Thank you for lifting the point about a lot of things, but implicit bias, because I know that's something that we need to tackle as a district, as a system, because you said it, and we can do better with everything that we have, all the resources that we have. There has to be more, and that's a key piece that we're not tackling right now.
Yes, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our third Principal of the Year finalist and victor, Mr. David White, Burgess Peterson Academy.
Victor, that sounds special. It's nice to be with you guys today. I am an ACES convert. True story. I used to hate ACES. Truly. My two top strengths are intellection and input. Means I'm always thinking, I'm overthinking, I'm always in my head. And input manifests for me in word choice and having time to think about what I wanted to say, choosing the right word and saying what I meant to say. This forum does not work with those two top strengths. However, I've learned to really enjoy hearing from colleagues and seeing how leadership is personalized based on your experiences, who you are, your disposition, and the geography and makeup of your buildings. And that's really rich. So I look forward to that part while I don't like the other part so much. Whether you're a brand new baby principal doing great work, or a seasoned crusty principal like me, or an elegant veteran like Crystal, or somewhere in between, there's something to learn. I'm crusty, you're elegant. But
We still love
this
you,
is my
David.
30th year in this business, so I felt like I wanted to be transparent in that way. So thanks for that. Back in the clipboard days. Yep, we had cubicles together, remember? Yeah. When you drove your Geo, remember that? Uh-huh. You drove the wheels off that thing. Anyway, where's the clicker? Let me hold it. It'll give me something to do with my hand. We are an international baccalaureate primary years program school. We've been authorized since about 2 weeks before the pandemic hit. And my glow is we have 3 new signature events at our school this year, and one of them is focused on helping our community understand more about the PYP and involving them more directly in what that means at our school. So one of our 3 signature events is the BPA Culture Fest. We had our first one back in November. It was a huge success. I was really literally mind blown about how eager our families are to get back in the building to contribute in ways that are special to them. So our Culture Fest, we wanted to move beyond flags, foods, and festivals, right? The typical ways we experience each other's culture. So we invited our families to come and showcase something about either their ethnic culture or the culture of their family or a culture that they're really interested in, and to run a table, set up a table, and share with whoever might stop by something about their culture, whether it was music or dance or costume or, yes, perhaps food. And it was such a great success, and we look forward to growing that event next year. The gym and the cafeteria were jam-packed. We were hoping for 50 people, and we had about 200 people. It was a great night. And so our grow is, because COVID hit when it hit, and we weren't able to send people to travel trainings, we got really behind on the expectation of the IBO around how many of your people need what levels of training. So, and we've hired several new people since the pandemic began and since our initial authorization. So, we have set aside March 20th and 21st. We're having an IB authorized trainer come to us, and we're having 17 people on our staff trained for making the PYP happen, which is a required level 1 training, and that's going to feel really good. We're using that PL day on the Monday, and we're getting subs for the Tuesday to make that happen and knock that out. And then we're using the rest of our travel dollars to send 6 additional team members to travel training this summer so that we can be ready for our first 5-year recertification visit, which will happen spring of next school year. That got here really quickly, but it's spring of next school year. Yeah, yes. Yeah, self-study will kick off soon as well. We don't have any vacancies. I'm thankful for that.
All right, so David, so looking at your attendance data, job well done, and so all of those 30 years in action here, right? Like, what have you seen with I think it's just more of a reflection and what speaks to the good work now, but what have you learned over time? What can those in the room glean from, what you've put in place at your school?
I appreciate that. Our attendance rate is historically pretty strong. It's stronger right now than it may have ever been, 95.5. However, January, we've had a lot of kids puking, and it's going to go down, right? So we're going to enjoy this 95.5 because it will probably take a hit next month. We really message strongly that if you're not sick, we want you at school. We have monthly morning meetings wherein I tell that tale and preach that sermon. We award classrooms with the best monthly attendance rate, ADA, on each homeroom with a big obnoxious ribbon that goes outside their door, and we announce those winners in the context of that public meeting, and the kids go nuts for it. And they love seeing their teacher be hyped about who's going to win. They get into these friendly competitions. It's been really cool, and it hasn't costed a thing, so that's been really good. This week we've legitimately had 9 kids throwing up at school, and in some of those cases when the moms or dads came to get them, they said, well, they didn't feel well this morning, but they wanted to come to school, so we might have to adjust our messaging to hit more fully the if you're not sick part, right? Because if you have a fever or you feel nauseous or you have diarrhea, we want you to stay home. So we're proud of that. Also, when we have our care teams meetings, we for the chronically absent kiddos, we look sort of in the middle of the list, not the kids who have already done the damage, right, and that are be really.
So we look at those kids who are on the verge of, we look at the, ooh, that one sounds better anyway, thank you. We look at the children who are on the verge of moving into chronically absent and do some messaging and conversation with the parents of those kiddos about, well, if they miss 2 more times, they're going to be on this list that we don't want them to be on, and that's how we treat that.
All right, so looking at your map data on the next slide, it's
Can I say one quick thing about suspension?
Please. Yes.
We have one child that we have suspended this year. We happen to have suspended him twice. He has some aggression issues, and when you hit someone with the intent to harm them and you lack contrition, I will send you home. So we've sent him home twice. And it was interesting because we also learned this year about level 1 offenses, level 2 offenses. So this young man had been suspended for 14.1 fight, and my AP and I learned that it needed to be a 14.2 code in order to be to justify the suspension. So that was some learning for us, even though we've been in this work a long time. The last thing I wanted to say was when you look in the dashboard, because it's only that one student and he's been suspended for 2 separate offenses on 2 separate days, it still shows up as a 0.000. So I plugged in a 1 there just because that 0 isn't quite true. Yeah.
So your map data looks pretty consistent across the year. So thinking about fall to winter, winter to spring again, what's happening differently to impact those kids that are still hanging there in the red and the yellow?
Yeah, so we're really proud of our Tier 1 instruction for literacy and reading, particularly in the work that we've done for the past several years. We're going to meet our school's goal, I believe, of 65% or more proficient or above on Georgia milestones. The indicators are strong for that. For math, we're not going to hit that goal because we have that same target. But however, I did want to celebrate that. Last year at this time, the green and the dark green only totaled 33%. So we are seeing significant growth year over year, but fall to winter within the space of this year, it's pretty consistent. But we are proud of that growth. This is the first year we've had a math coach. So we've had some really explicit talks about and previewing of content at the PLC table. So that's led to the growth that we're seeing. And she has built schedules for our new novice and not excellent handful of teachers to watch each other teach, to watch her teach. She goes in and gives them feedback. I think we're going to see significant growth over time now that we have the ability to have that practice in place. Yep. We're super stoked about our early literacy and foundational skills.
Yes, I was just about to say.
Yeah, we're very proud of that data, and I think that bears out the work we've done with early literacy to include our Orton-Gillingham training from years ago, as well as our use of Fundations as a resource during that explicit phonics time every day. What isn't shown here that I'm going to tell you about, because it makes me smile, if you take our foundational skills and you sort it by exceeds expectations and above, sort it not by level 2 but by level 3. Only 2 schools outscored us. And there are schools that are far more affluent than our school. So it makes me really proud of the work that we've done. It's Mary Lynn and somebody else. I don't remember this somebody else. I don't know who it was. But anyway, it makes me really proud of our kids and our teachers and our literacy coach and the work that they do.
Yep. That's right.
And it bodes well for the future of our kids as they track through the grades and are able to access content more deeply and more quickly.
Exactly right. When they get to 3rd grade, they're going to show up and show out.
I hope so. Yes, that's the plan. HMH. We have HMH pep rallies every month. The kids have a brag tag. We pull them together in the cafeteria, all the kiddos on all the platforms. They come together once a month and we celebrate who had the most minutes, who had the most sessions. We punch their little brag tags. They have punch card brag tags for any kid who met the goal of twice a week for at least 20 minutes at a time. We also found early, like in September, that we needed to model for them what it looks like to be engaged with the platform. right? You're not daydreaming, you're not giggling with your friend, you're not staring at the ceiling. So we literally modeled for them what engagement with the screen and your keyboard and your headphones should look like in order to get that punch. And then, so at the end of it, I think there are 6 months that we're tracking on their punch card. Kiddos who get 5 out of 6 punches will get to come to some special dance or party or something. And so we're incentivizing in that way. We're also still using the strategy of having our special needs students have a more robust goal for time and usage on the HMH platforms, and our special ed lead teacher helps track and monitor that and incentivizes that with them as well.
Good job. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
I have a question looking at the subgroup data on the next slide. So I'm hearing all of the great success with your Tier 1 instruction. How are you making sure that both the work of the special ed team and gen ed team is aligned and that they're exposed to that great Tier 1 instruction?
Yep, so we, about 80% of the time, it's not 100%, I won't lie, but about 80% of the time we're able to have the interrelated resource teacher sit in at the PLC table when we're previewing content, when we're looking at formative assessments, when we're creating exit tickets, so that what they're seeing, whether it's co-taught or resource, still matches up and aligns with how we're tracking through content. And that's been a big win. We've not really done that until this year. So, and it's really difficult, right, from a scheduling perspective, but we're successful about 80% of the time, and we're pleased with the progress we're seeing so far. I wanted to mention also the one subgroup where we've lost some traction in both math and reading is our Black kids subgroup. We've had 15 new children, and this isn't the whole story, but I think it's part of the story. We've had 15 new kids since November 1, and all but one of them have been African American, and all but one of them have been significantly behind academically. And so when those kiddos were a part of our mid-year map that weren't a part of our initial year map, I think that's part of the story there. We're also spending a few dollars with FEV online tutoring. In Q2, we picked 43 kids, we prioritized 43 students of color who scored in the lower buckets for mathematics, and they spent time twice a week with an online tutor who customized their instruction, and we really were hoping for and expecting a bump from that time and that work. We didn't see it. So for Q3, we've pivoted. We've selected 50 students of color from grades 3, 4, and 5 who scored at level 2 with the intent of hope of moving them into level 3. The adjustment being based in our belief that the students who already have a little bit more content knowledge and acuity with math might be better able with that one-on-one private tutor to attend and respond and grow differently than the kids with the lowest skills there.
What is the measure to determine whether or not they're making progress? Does it have a pre and a post?
It does have a pre and a post.
Okay. So you did not see growth in the pre and the post with just those 40?
Well, we didn't see the growth show up on map.
But what on the pre and the post, though? Was there growth there?
It was flat. Okay. And our work with FEV, I don't know that we will continue after this year, because the promise of customization fell a little short of the sell. And when my math coach would engage with the vendor nearly every week to check on tutors who maybe didn't show, because they're supposed to have the same tutor every week to have that relationship build over time and have a sense of who the kiddo they're working with is, and that fell a little short of the promise as well.
Just the intentionality around intervention or around tutoring, and that if you are seeing the progress with the system or the program or the teachers, but you don't see it on map, then what's happening there? And that's a good question that you've been able to analyze and say it's not working, so maybe we need to pivot. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes with the 50.
I agree.
To see if that has an impact.
Yep. We thought long and hard about maybe just severing ties with the vendor, but we want to try this one more time. For 1 quarter, it's a $13,000 spend to touch 50 kids, so we'll see.
All right, let's go to your need slide.
I need money. And I have 3 ideas for how to get it. We're losing Title I status. We are now at 28% free and reduced lunch, which is well below the threshold for school-wide Title I. So that's a loss of about $166K. Our budget baseline went up by about $100K, but that is eaten up entirely in the cost of the average teacher. So it's really, we will feel that $166,000 loss. I have 3 ideas about that. On our budget sheet, The data for the number of gifted kids is from the October FTE. Since then, our second look testing placed in several more students. So we have 72 kiddos who are gifted now, and we have first looks coming up in a few weeks. So I know we will have at least 72, probably a good many more, gifted kids next year. I would like some rectification of that gap between what I'm funded at, 56, and at least what I have now, 72. That will generate about $100K and help me very much because I need a new fourth grade teacher. Another way we might get that, you probably know about the Board of Ed's new policy of how full-time employees working within a cluster can request a GAT seat at a school within that cluster that has space. Because we have a gap between our current enrollment and our max capacity, I've doubled the number of transfer seats for next year from 10 to 20. Those seats will fill up the day the thing opens. So I would like the money attached to those 20 transfer seats now, so that I can go ahead and budget for that and hire that teacher that I need. Or if that doesn't work, I have a third idea. Burgess-Peterson, this year, we spend about $340,000 less on our staff than we budgeted for because we budget for the average cost of teachers. But when I analyze our actual spend compared to the average cost of teachers, there's a gap of about $350,000. I'm not so bold as to ask for all of that, but I'd like some of it. If I could even get 30% of that gap, that would really, really help, especially in this first year of us getting used to no longer having access to Title I funds. That transition would really help.
And so you can't move that money because you want it for next year? Is that what it is?
I don't understand the question.
Like, so we can move funds. Are you asking to move those funds, or we can't because it's for next year? No, he doesn't have. But the 350.
I would move them if I had them.
Yeah, but I thought you did because of the salary gap, and it'll come
Well,
back.
the salary gap is an internal back of house thing. It's not something that we typically see.
Okay,
I had to really work to find that
Okay.
number, right, to access that information. And I understand that there are schools who spend more than the average.
Yes.
So my underspending helps on the back end
It
for
does.
those schools. Or if it isn't spent, it kicks into the fund balance, which is also fine. But I need a few of those dollars.
But if it's not spent, you're saying, why can't it come back to you?
Yes, ma'am.
And next year's pool, which is a very good
Yes, ma'am.
solution. Yes. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for that.
And I'm getting the communication to the back of the house now. So
I
we
love
can
it.
start working
Thank
on
you.
it.
Courtney Calhoun, by the way, is top tier. Top tier. Yeah. Thanks, y'all.
Don't tell them I told you.
We only have it on video.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, that will be. And that's something that we talked about in even those sessions that we're having with the budget reports that y'all told me about. And getting reporting monthly more in real time, I think that will be very helpful because then you'll know before the end of the year.
Ladies and gentlemen, Principal Timmy Foster, Parkside Elementary School.
Good morning. Just very quickly, those are a lot of words that really just mean for our grow around student agency. That is one of the areas that we have really focused on in our first year of being IB authorized. And what has really been surprising is how personalized learning has allowed us to really look at student agency and student voice and choice and ownership. One of the things that we're going to begin doing next month in February are those students who are identified as our learner profile of the month. I will grab those students and we will have a student principal talk. And I will meet with these students. It's one each month that we choose to get more student voice in how we are running and what we're doing at Parkside that would make it a better place for them, as well as culturally responsive to what they are needing and looking for and asking for in our programming. One of the areas that we need to grow in, which will be continuous, is around approaches to learning. just making sure that we are allowing more opportunities for research to happen, not just at those elementary grades 3, 4, and 5, but it's starting much earlier in those earlier grades, like in K1 and 2 around exploratory learning. We have, well, actually we have one vacancy that just came available like yesterday or the day before, and it's in our pre-K special ed unit at GEIS, not at the school site at Parkside, but another program that I am in charge of. And here is our attendance rate or information or data.
Tim, it looks good. Looks good. And you know, and we can see progress even year over year when we look at kind of around the same point last year. Anything that's new, improved, things that you've shifted, adjusted to see some of the progress?
Yeah, one of the things that I think that has helped a whole lot with attendance this year over last year is that we were very intentional in the beginning of the year of identifying those students who had been identified as chronically absent. And we had a meeting with those students and parents at the beginning of the year to address that issue. We also made sure that we combed through those students and found out who was still living in our attendance area, who had moved, and all those different things that impact students being able to get to school or not. So we were very intentional around that. Each month, every day, we're announcing homeroom classes with perfect attendance. We're very intentional. We have a traveling trophy that goes to the class with the highest daily attendance rate each month. So we're doing all of those things to make sure that we are acknowledging and making students know that being at school every day is important. Another thing that we did was making sure that parents understood that the state doesn't recognize excused absences. So they're thinking okay, I'm out because the kid was sick, I sent an excuse, it should be okay, it should be erased, but it's not. That is still, showing up in our attendance data even though they were excused. So just being very intentional around that.
Somebody has map data. All right, so let's look at your map data. Looking from fall to winter, a little bit of movement, but pretty consistent. So just talk about what your work in the first semester, what strategies you saw that were working, and then what are you going to do between now and the milestones to make sure you're moving in the right direction?
Yeah, the last time I was here, I really talked about how we kind of refocused from the beginning of the year based on what we were seeing as we were going into classrooms. And we had really began to put in a plan in place to address what we had seen. And one of those things were around Tier 1 instruction, making sure that foundations was happening with fidelity in every single class. And we did all of those things, and now we're in a space. I was a little surprised, and we're still trying to figure out what happened with that little slippage. We were expecting it to be kind of flat or a little growth, but because there was a little slippage, we're trying to figure out what that was. We did get a number of new students back in December also, but also it was just, we looked at what was happening when we were testing that day. We think it was more to do with the motivations of the student to do well, than anything, because we were pretty diligent in making sure that the instructional piece was happening, that we were monitoring all the usage of all the HMH programs and platforms. So all those things were in place. So we are expecting that we will see the growth from fall to spring when we take the assessment again in March, in a couple of weeks.
Would you say that small group instruction is happening consistently for those students who are in the red, targeted to their specific needs?
Yes, and one of the things that we've done, particularly around small group instruction, and you'll see that in some of these areas that we saw in those foundational skills, when we looked at the data, we noticed there was one kindergarten class that who increased the number of students with flags went up by 8 students. And so when we went to that classroom, it's a brand new teacher, new to teaching, new to the school. And so we had to design how to use HMH, the data, to determine what happens in those small groups. And then making sure that we assign the paraprofessional also tasked to address those students with the flag, making sure that they are pulling the right intervention, and that 3 days a week for 10 minutes of time, for 10 minutes, that you will drill the deck or whatever the issue may be for that particular student, and making sure that that is happening. And they're tracking that data on a tracker, and that is the information that, or the data that we talk about during our weekly data meetings when they come to talk with us.
All right, so it looks like you are on track for HMH. Your Read 180 minutes. Do you know where that is currently?
No.
Oh, I see 18. I see 18.
Yeah.
I was looking at the spring one.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's
looking
in
at
the
the other
spring.
side. Gotcha.
Like I
Okay.
said, I just saw that.
Perfect. Okay. Good job. Keep up the good work.
And here is our subgroup data. One of the things I want to point out, which is positive, is that our special needs students, you can see that they are the only group that made growth in math and reading, both of those. But we did see a small dip, and it was by race and by content. Our African American students dropped in math, but they made increases in reading. Our white student made increases in math, but they dropped in reading. So it was trying to understand what that was all about. And again, I think it was just, we're not sure how seriously the students took taking the assessment this last time. So we are hoping to see something different in the data next time. But it wasn't hugely significant, but we did notice that there was some slippage in that data.
I have a question, just because we don't see a lot of that growth, so this is really exciting. What was your secret sauce that you can share with us?
We've been, for the last couple of years, what we've done with our special ed students, one, to make sure that co-teaching happens wherever it can. Because like everyone else has said, students have to be exposed to that level of rigor of the standard in order to even have a chance on the milestones. So making sure that that happens, our co-teachers and our special ed teachers, even when they can't, when students have to go to resource, those special ed teachers are at the planning table with our general ed teachers. We have them assigned by grade level specifically so that they can be at those planning tables, so that they can hear and understand what students need to know and be able to do based on the Georgia Performance Standards, and then go back and look at those EIP to make sure that they are getting those particular skills as well. But they have to be able to expose students to grade level standard in order for them to have a chance on their assessment.
Just shout out for the cohesion between your Tier 1 instruction, EIP, and special ed. That's a great continuum. Great work.
Well, we can move right into needs then, Tammy. Yeah.
We don't really have any urgent needs. I just need to make sure that just because we saw that little slippage, that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, that we stay consistent with what we're doing and we know to be working. And so just staying with what we're doing and expecting to see something different in the spring. And then just keeping our teachers encouraged to continue the work, because it is a lot. It's a lot to monitor. It's a lot to assess for. It's a lot to understand, right? So just keeping them motivated to continue to do the work. And when they see the data, that is kind of an we are doing the right things. We just got to be able to stick with it, but understanding that it is a lot that we're asking them to do, and just trying to keep them encouraged to continue with that.
So what I'm hearing there is the needs are that the things that, I mean, we know it's a lot, so no more things, right?
Right.
Like, I just want to cut through to say what we're really saying here is that let's keep the focus where we are.
Where we
nothing
are,
else, right? And the motivation piece, being thoughtful about ways that it will help when they can stay focused. Any other ways, any other thoughts around that motivation? I just trying to cut through any additional need. You've got the time. It's your mic. Anything else?
Yeah, and really, what I have appreciated is me just having the opportunity to run my school the way that I see fit, and not feel like I'm being micromanaged, but having resources that I can pull from that fit with what is happening, not just for my school, but what would work best for my teachers, understanding where they are and what they're coming to the table with what will work best for my students and my families, given, you know, the history there. So just being able to have that autonomy to do what I see needs to be done and not be afraid that something bad is going to happen because I'm not following it just the way that it's been outlined someplace, but not so far outside of the box that it's crazy, right? But just being able to manage within the guardrails what needs to happen at my school.
Dr. Smith, I would add that compensation study that's kicking off now will be another part of motivating our staff. A lot of people are looking at that, especially in Cobb County, and seeing where they would fall.
Yes.
And that's a really attractive option for a lot of people.
It's a great call out, and you know, for everybody watching virtually, there's been a lot of communication, and I don't know, do we have anybody from our HR team still here? I know we've got multiple meetings going on, but plugging into that compensation study, there is an opportunity for everybody in this room and beyond to be engaged in that, and it's incredibly important, and it is a lever that we can use. So great call out. Thank you.
Folks, we culminate today with Dr. Robin Christian from Barack and Michelle Obama Academy.
All right, y'all have to give me the same attention. Okay, I'm last this time. Give me the same attention. All right. Yes, so I'm Robin, the very proud principal of Barack and Michelle Obama Academy, commonly known as BAMO. Very excited about the IB work that's happening. I have to stop and give a shout out to Dr. Murphy. I call her Thea, but I get on her last nerves. I think she needs a stipend for the work that she does just with I know Dr. Flores like, don't say that, but I say
That's
that
called
to
her
say-
salary.
Right, her salary, right. She is on the clock when she's doing that, but I need to get her in office because I have a rather novice IB specialist who is my ambassador for IB, who pulls my coattail to say, slow down, IB. But it's very common to see them working together in the building. And I mean, she will say, I'm leaving at 11 and at 1:30, I'll still hear Thea's voice. So we could not have done this huge lift. I spent the day with them and we just completed our school planner. That was a huge lift and I was able to stay with them that day. They removed everything off of my calendar. All of our instructional staff have started our IB POIs. I will tell you, I thought that they could finish one in a day. It is a lot of work. I mean, they left like very frustrated. So the buy-in is there, but the teachers felt overwhelmed. So I'm still trying to search for some time with that. But also our grow is the time needed to meet and plan for the upcoming units. And that's huge. You know, we are Rollins School. And so even with that, just finding the bandwidth in a week to do that work. And so we have carved out some time to work on those exactly the February 20th PL day as well. Great thing, I have this vacancy because she is my baby, but I have a para that started with us about 2 years ago, so I was able to really push her, and she is now our kinder teacher. But I will say it created a para vacancy. So it's just phenomenal, the energy that's coming out of that kindergarten classroom, and so we have been interviewing, and I think Caroline spoke to this. I'm not quite sure what's going on. We interviewed 5 people yesterday. We will need to continue to interview. So I'm not just putting a body in front of the kids. It was kind of interesting, but I will be continuing to interview next week. Very excited about the attendance work that happened here at BAMO this year. We have a robust care team. I am one of those big principal attendance guru. So as you all have probably seen on Twitter, I start my day every morning with calling the name of a student from every grade level. And everybody, and you can just see the car lane. I'm like, y'all don't speed trying to get in here, but you have to be in your seat. And so you never know the name I'm gonna call. It's a big deal. But we do all kinds of attendance things, incentives, even awarding teachers. So it's a big deal and we can see this lift here. We had the highest growth in the district. I'm not quite sure, but we are probably like 6. I'm always on APS graphs like, no. So we still have I think we are like number 4 in the district with highest growth with attendance. So very proud of that, because the kids need to be in school. Suspension rate, still working on that, but we have improved from last year. This consists of 20 of the same kids, so they are repeat students. 7 of the students are in
DSE, and I think there are about 13 that are in Tier 3. I love our wraparound supports at BAMO. I am in a good place with that. I have Chris 180. I have AVLF. I also have one of my partners with Emory, Grad Gen. We have a Young Kings mentoring program, and all of those young black males that have been suspended are in that program. They go on field trips. You probably have seen on Twitter, they're up there on Saturdays, really trying to engage them. So this is a work in progress, and we know that suspension does not work. My restorative practices coach is working closely with those teachers on improving those classroom management processes, and then it's really about building relationships, and we know that. So having 7 new teachers this year, I can definitely see that it's been a real huge lift.
Okay.
All right.
All right, let's get into the data.
All right, so one of the things I see as a strategy for you is the consistent biweekly observation and feedback.
Yes.
So can you talk about what you're seeing in classrooms and then how that is impacting the kind of support and professional learning you provide to your teachers?
Yes, it is very differentiated. Even in the 7 brand new teachers, let's take, because I have like one brand new teacher. I mean, I will put her against a veteran teacher. It's tiering those teachers. So even in the PL, what I'm noticing is I probably need to go a little more deeper because they all don't need the same thing depending on what level they're on. But I think the PL that we have is right on the market. It is still Tier 1. 2 of those days we know are the work with Rollins, and I have to give a special shout out to Celeste. I have to now share her with not one other school, but another school. I'm so like, But yes, I was on the phone with her this morning, but I will tell you that the work that she's doing to build capacity of the teacher, the literacy support staff is huge. And so she's training them to be able to give that targeted feedback. So I enjoy our PL structure that we have. I think it's right on the money with Tier 1. Yes, that's really where our issue is Tier 1 instruction.
So thinking about 3-5, which will take the GMAS,
Yes.
what specifically are you focusing on with them as far as specific instructional strategies?
Yes, okay, I'm glad you asked. So we have a very targeted approach with 3-5. I realized that the runway was too short to leave the master teacher leaders away from instruction to just do PL, because I mean, we have to move fast with this. The urgency is there. So 3, 4, and 5 are assigned an MTL. So half of the day, that MTL is teaching in the classroom, so that teacher is watching them. And then also, like, for example, 4th grade, I mean, 5th is also, well, 5th grade, I do have to give an applaud. 5th grade math doesn't really need a lot of support. I don't know if you can go on APS graphs, but my 5th grade teacher has the highest math growth in the district. So you can look if you want to now. Like, but, you know, she's one of those teachers, like, she's like, leave me alone. I'm doing well. I'm like, you got to come to PL sometime. But I will tell you this, the work that she's doing with the kids, I mean, and we're talking about a group that really, really struggles academically. I said high growth, the highest growth. But 4th grade, let me tell you the model, and it's like this in 3rd too. So in 4th grade, when it's time for math, we are doing some compacting. So those, like the 4th grade MTL for math, she's breaking up her group. So now I have 3 groups of kids in math targeting the work that they need, because that's where we saw the biggest gap in our math performance. So it's really targeting down to the prerequisites, and then we also have 2 spiral reviews built in. So I know that we will see a lot of improvement in that.
All right, thank you, Robin. So can you talk about your map fluency data from fall to winter and implementation of foundations and what that looks like, and how are you all supporting the rigor of implementation at BAMO?
Okay, yes, so of course I will say, you know, I don't do excuses, but we were really focusing on the structural piece of Rollins. And I think we had to get the system in place with the use of the geodes and all of that. So now we know, 30 minutes foundations is across the board. That's a non-negotiable in our building. But what Celeste is doing now is training those teachers. Now we're talking like brand new, straight out of undergrad. it's just not about a PL. You have to continue to model that. And then right now we're still focusing on phonemic awareness and phonological awareness. That is huge in our building. And so that we also tested 10 more kids. So that's about 58 kids at the bottom that we're still targeting. So I am excited about the fact that I have a reading specialist that is dedicating her time to that, and I absolutely love the GEOs, and I hope that we get to have them next year. The decodables, they're amazing. They are amazing, yes. I know, but that's one of the luxuries of being a Rollins school this year, but I don't know about next year, so I've already asked Jamel about that. Yeah, she says she's gonna work with me. Yeah, but I mean, if you can get those GEOs, I mean, it's been amazing. The teachers really like them. The kids like them. They're very engaging. So I really enjoy that. Okay. Still looking at that system 44, 14 minutes. I think a lot of it is Kinder. I know the data is showing, Kinder is getting acclimated, brand new teacher that just got onboarded 2 weeks ago. Okay. And then my third grade, we've had some kind of configuration logistics with third grade, but that should definitely improve. Okay. So we got to improve that 14 minutes. Okay.
All right.
Okay. I'm very excited about the work that's happening with our SWD population of students. Every DSE teacher is pushed into a PL. The attempt is you go to the PL with, you have to be careful about going with the number of kids you have. It's really looking at diagnostic data to see where the kids need the most support. But right now we have, they have their planning time. So I also like it because it helps them to build relationships with gen ed teachers. Too often they feel isolated. And so this is helping them. I mean, it's like they're a natural part of the team now. And so they're involved in the Rollins work. They do everything that gen ed teachers do. The students that are in those resource classes are still getting the work of Rollins. And so it's very powerful. And so I am seeing that pay off in our data.
One quick question, and congrats on the great growth with your students in special education. I don't know, because I can't obviously click on this in real time. Do you think this is more your early learners, or do you think this is 3 to 5?
Oh, this is definitely 3 to 5. Okay. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a different teacher?
Yes.
Okay. That's how you.
Who's now at 22 students, so that's I'll be in touch with my coordinator.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, well, we got off the list. Yes. We still have a lot of work to do at BAMO. So with that, just make sure we keep the consistent support. I know I won't get the money. I've just been begging and just making phone calls like, hey, and they're like, we give it to you, we have to give it to other people too. But I'm losing a lot of money, a lot of zero, it's a lot. And I have some configurations in mind. We're gonna be okay, but we're gonna feel it though. And so it's like the sustainability, when you're dealing with grants and all of that, you have to write this big piece about sustainability. And usually you don't get the grant awarded unless you can talk about sustainability. And I don't know how, literally, if you look at my turnaround budget and what's been afforded in my turnaround budget, so now I'm gonna have to go and get into my general budget I'm gonna feel it. I will feel it, yeah. Okay.
So how are you using the after-school program? I meant to ask that earlier.
Yes, yes.
How would you,
Yes, so that's a good thing. So we serve 70 students in Eagle Academy. So we are a 21st century site. So we wrote a grant. This is our third time. I think we did it, Caroline, twice at Burgess Peterson. 21st century $5 million grant. So it's not we're not supposed to call it an after school program. It's a school within a school. It's really a school like a program coordinator, but it is all aligned to the day school data. And this year, for the first time, 90% of the staff are from the day school, which is why we can't play kickball, David. But I say that to say, and they are vested in it. So my 4th grade teacher
is teaching in that program. My third grade teacher, so the kids, they have a break, they get their snack, and then she just extends the instruction. So that's the piece that I like about it. One of my master teacher leaders is the program director. She's a data guru, so we're always looking at data, and I will tell you, we're aligning all of our MAP gaps in that program. So it's academically based, if you know anything about 21st century, yeah.
And I forgot to give you a shout out for getting off of the state list.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I think, let me see, this is my 8th year at Bama. We've been on 3 lists and we've gotten off 3 lists. Every time the state comes, I'm like, no more lists. All right. Thank you. All right.
Thank you to the Mays and Jackson Cluster principals for sticking with us. We're going to end a little bit differently, so I need Dr. Goodwine, if you could come up, Dr. Smith, Ms. Brown. And we want to celebrate a few of our principals, and so we're going to do this now. And if Alex could be ready with the pictures. And so we actually recognized these principals at the Tier 2 and Tier 3 meetings, but we wanted to do it in this venue. And so we want to first recognize a school who went from Promise to TSI and is doing the work, and I know she wants to be off every list, but we want to celebrate that she had that accelerated improvement, and that is Caroline Brown from Timber. Our next recognition is a school that has gotten off the Promise designation, and that is Cascade Elementary's principal, Tiffany Moman. Last but certainly not least, and she just came up here to speak about it, but she has gotten off of the APS identified list, Barack and Michelle Obama Academies principal, Robin Christian. And Dr. Smith, if you could close us out.
Actually, I want to do one other recognition, if I may, real quick, because we just had several principals that were celebrating about getting off the list. We also have all of our Principal of the Year finalists in the room. I think that speaks to the leadership of Dr. Goodwine and the work she does with Jackson Mays. So I want to give her a round of applause and say thank you for your leadership. All right, y'all, we made it. We made it through we've been busy this week. All of our elementary schools, correct? So thank you for closing us out in this positive way. We look forward. Do we have a survey? Do we have a survey coming? Do we have a link, or do I click this? What is that? Am I doing it the right way? Oh, no, I'm going off the wrong. No, that's good. Oh, I'm doing it? Okay, keep clicking. But just wanted to, again, echo the gratitude, because this is a continuous learning process. So the next time when we come back and do this again in 3.0, it will be different because of the conversations we had today. Hopefully the needs that you have asked for are fulfilled, or we're moving in that direction. And it will look different because of what you provide us here. So we will continue to grow as a system. We continue to grow, and we do it because we believe that the answers are here in the room together at the school level, at the district level, working in collaboration. So thank you all. Have a wonderful afternoon. We will see you soon. Great job.